or visually recording this meeting. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair. There's a typographical error on the agenda. Item 6.4, proposed zoning bylaw amendment for property located at 46 to 52 James Street, North Hamilton, PED 16044. It indicates Ward 3. It should be Ward 2.
Thank you.
Then we have two delegation requests. Item 4.1 from John Hawker wishing to speak to item 8.2 respecting elevators in multi-story residential buildings for today's meeting, and also item 4.2 from Sarah Knowles of GSP Group, the agent for the applicant, respecting item 8.1, the zoning bylaw application for 71, 75, and 77 Leland Street. And we have two added written comments respecting improving planning application review CI-15-E PED 16060, which is item 6.1 on your agenda. Item 6.1I is from Lakewood Beach Community Council, and 6.1II is from Terry Johns of T. Johns Consulting Group Limited. And then we have written comments from Allison Shooter, President of Beasley Neighborhood Association, respecting report PED 16039 to licensed payday loans businesses. And this is added as item 7.1I, and added item 8.1I is a written request from Chris Pigeon, agent for the applicant, to defer consideration of report PED 15201 respecting application for an urban Hamilton official plan amendment for lands located at 71, 75, and 77 Leland Street to March 1st, 2016.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Moved by Councillor Connolly, seconded by Councillor Green. All those in favor? Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, can I have approval of the minutes of the previous meeting on February the 2nd, please? Councillor Pearson, Councillor Collins, all those in favor? Thank you. You have delegation requests in front of you. John Hawker wishing to speak to item 8.2 respecting elevators in multi-story residential buildings for today's meeting. Thank you. Sarah Knoll, item 8.1 for 71, 75, 77 Leland. And members of the committee, may I have a motion to approve those meeting requests, please? Thank you. Councillor Green and Councillor Pearson. Please note that this is not public meeting, so 5-minute limit will be for the 8.1, and they will come up at the same time 8.1 is coming up, and Mr. Hawker will address the committee when 8.2 is being addressed. So we have consent items: proposed Lafarge Dundas South Quarry extension, objection, reply letter, and status update. May I have a motion to receive the consent item 5.1, please? Councillor Pearson, Councillor Conley, all those in favor? Thank you. We're going to 6.1. Before we begin, members of the public, in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act, please be advised that if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Council of the City of Hamilton before Council make a decision regarding the official plan amendments, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Council of the City of Hamilton to the Ontario Municipal Board, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the OMB unless, in the opinion of the Board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. I have two items, written comments. May I have a motion, please, to receive those comments? Councillor Pearson, Councillor Green. All those in favor? Thank you. We have a representative from Urban Solutions who has advised that he wished to speak to this issue. Therefore, we'll first hear the staff presentation, and I invite Melanie Pham to make her presentation. And Melanie is sitting up there beside her wonderful bosses. So, Melanie, would you like to begin?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. The purpose of the report before you is twofold. First, to make several changes to the city's rural and urban official plans related to road widening and complete application requirements for development applications. The intent of these changes is to provide more flexibility and clarity for development proponents and staff when applying road widening requirements to development applications, and to allow staff to request several additional types of materials as part of a complete application to improve staff's ability to review development applications. Secondly, staff are requesting that council endorse 3 guideline documents, also related to development applications, to provide development proponents with clear information about the city's requirements and expectations. Requests to provide lesser road widenings than the maximums outlined in the official plans are frequently made as part of the development review process for various reasons. Other concerns have also been raised by council members and developers pertaining to road widenings in the former downtowns or along corridors that are significant in comparison with existing historical streetscapes. Staff are required under the official plan to take the full identified road widening amount. The only exception to this permitted by the official plan is in situations where constraints make it impractical to do so. In this case, an exemption or reduction is possible. Sometimes, however, there are competing objectives related to a development, such as protecting a cultural heritage resource or maintaining a design that fits well into the existing streetscape, in addition to the objective of providing a sufficient road width for future needs. Staff have identified that a change to this exemption policy to allow a more balanced planning review and more clearly specify the criteria for considering an exemption or reduction would be beneficial. The proposed policy would permit the city to allow an alternate requirement where it is determined through the development review process that it is not desirable or feasible to acquire the full widening due to a significant adverse impact on 4 criteria. The first one is existing built form. For example, where an existing building is located within a required road widening, providing the widening through the existing building would be considered a significant adverse impact. Or 2, an existing streetscape. An example of this is if most buildings on an existing street have a similar setback and provide a continuous streetscape, and a new development on the same street is required to have a much greater setback from the actual street. The widening may create a significant impact on the streetscape character. The natural heritage system impacts may include circumstances where a site design that is created to accommodate a full road widening would result in the development having adverse impacts on a feature of the natural heritage system, such as a watercourse, wetland, or woodlot. Or lastly, a cultural heritage resource. Impacts may include circumstances where providing a road widening on a heritage property or an adjacent property might impact some of the features that are protected by the heritage designation. The proposed policies would also permit alternative requirements based on the recommendations approved through other city-initiated studies for specific areas within the city. For example, if an environmental assessment is completed for a specific road or an area master plan or similar study. This recognizes council direction provided through these studies. If a widening requirement is not feasible for an application based on the stated criteria, but the city still needs additional land for infrastructure purposes, an additional policy is proposed to allow the city to require an easement over the applicant's lands. This would be an uncommon situation, but may be the very best option in limited situations. To ensure a consistent standard of review and ensure that requests have been fully evaluated based on the criteria, staff are recommending that a right-of-way impact assessment be added to the official plan as a potential requirement for a complete application. The need for an assessment would be identified at the formal consultation stage, and this would be requested to be submitted with a full application as per the city's complete application policies. In the rural official plans, site plans required only because a property is adjacent to natural heritage features, which typically is 1 or 2 family dwellings which are adjacent to an environmentally significant area, are always exempt from providing road widenings as a condition of site plan. We are now doing a housekeeping amendment to include the same policy in the Urban Hamilton official plan. Also, current policy in the Rural Hamilton official plan allows other types of minor site plans to be exempt from providing road widenings at the discretion of the city. This policy is also being added into the Urban Hamilton official plan to provide consistency between both plans. This means that for minor site plan applications, normally widenings would not be required as a condition, but the city has discretion to require it. For example, if it is needed immediately for something like the LRT or other situations such as correcting substandard or unsafe road conditions. The intent of these policies is to exempt smaller minor developments where a need to dedicate a road widening would create a significant hardship or financial impacts in comparison with the scale of the project. To clarify for development proponents and staff which applications would be considered minor and would normally be exempt, staff have prepared a short draft guideline which we are requesting that Council endorse. Exempted applications under the guideline would include any site plan accepted under the minor application form and fee, which generally include applications for single or semi-detached dwellings, small additions or buildings less than 100 square meters, or small parking areas, typically 5 spaces or less, or other small features such as patios, fire escapes. The guidelines would also exempt any site plan which is made for an addition to an existing building where the gross floor area of the addition does not exceed 30% of the gross floor area of the existing building. This is a rule that was previously endorsed by Council of the former region, and staff are recommending that it be recognized as a current guideline citywide. There are 2 other materials or information items that staff are requesting to be added to the list of materials in the city's official plans that can be requested as part of a complete application. These are community consultation and development review panel advice. Currently, proponents can initiate a community information meeting before an application is submitted, but there is no requirement. Sometimes when staff review formal consultations for potential applications, which are considered major, it is identified that a consultation with the neighborhood at the front end of the process would be beneficial, and staff will recommend this to an applicant. However, this is voluntary. Staff are recommending that community consultation be included in the official plan to permit a meeting to be a requirement prior to submitting an application. As noted, this would only be requested of major applications. This requirement is intended to improve public engagement by allowing for early issue identification, making the process more open and accessible to the public, and providing an opportunity for the proponent to explain the project before residents or owners in the neighborhood receive a formal notice. And it also provides the opportunity for the applicant to modify a proposal based on community feedback prior to formal submission of an application. To clarify for applicants what they are expected to submit with their application as a record of their consultation with the community, staff have prepared community consultation guidelines. The guidelines do not dictate how a meeting should be run or what format it should be in. This can be determined by the development proponent. They indicate who should be invited and require the development proponent to take minutes and make comment forms available to the public. The Design Review Panel is a pilot project approved by Council, whose purpose is to provide expert impartial design advice and guidance to city staff on development proposals in certain priority areas of the city. Since the Design Review Panel has been established, a number of proposals have been reviewed. However, there have been some cases where applicants have declined to go to the review panel. Staff do not have the authority to require a proposal to go before a formal application is submitted, even if the advice and guidance of the review panel is important for improving and enhancing the proposal. Staff can have the review panel review an application after it is submitted without an applicant's participation. However, this feedback at a later stage in the process is less constructive. As such, staff are recommending that advice from the Design Review Panel be included in the list of materials that can be requested as part of a complete application. This is consistent with the Design Review Panel mandate. Lastly, staff have also prepared guidelines for planning justification reports to assist applicants in understanding the city's expectations for these reports. Planning justification reports are the most common type of report that is requested as part of a development application. They are key documents that staff use in the review of an application, as they provide a detailed description and planning rationale for a proposal. A good report can result in quicker review of an application, saving staff time involved in the review, as well as saving the developer time in getting an application process moved forward. To prepare these guidelines, a large number of previously submitted reports were reviewed and staff were consulted to determine information needs for reports. A number of area planning firms who regularly prepare reports for applications at the city were also consulted. Staff are recommending that the resulting guidelines be endorsed by the committee today. Thank you for your time. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Melanie. Any questions for Melanie? I have a few, so Councillor Pearson, could you please? Well, I'll go to you first. Go ahead.
Melanie, thank you so much for all of the presentation. I know we have delegation requests to come forward as well, but I just wanted to ask a few things, just things that have popped out on me. On this design review requirement, I just pulled up documentation actually this morning. The design review panel, we just approved that it be extended. It's a pilot project, correct? To December of this year coming up.
Melanie?
Yes, that's correct.
And it's
Councillor?
only in a set area, and it looks like it's basically the CIP area, correct?
Melanie?
Yes, through you, Chair. It's only in certain priority areas where this applies. So the DRP mandate states that there are 3 specific areas where this applies: the downtown secondary plan area, and certain parts of the West Harbour secondary plan, and all properties that are within areas designated as primary corridors in the city's official plan.
Councillor?
Primary. We don't have those laid out on any mapping as far as primary areas or corridors, correct?
Melanie?
Madam Chair, the urban structure plan in the city's official plan does delineate the general area where the primary corridors are.
Councillor?
Okay, thank you. So I'll just listen to the delegations when they come forward. You mentioned, and I'm jumping around now, on the road widening, and I really appreciate this because, Madam Chair, as you're aware, I've had issues and have been bringing this forward for some time that we deal with road widenings. I've got a lot of areas in my ward where we're never going to widen these roads, yet we keep demanding the road widenings. And it's holding back on development and businesses. So my question with regards to road widening, Melanie, you mentioned that it would also incorporate if you have on, I take it, residential streets where you do an addition. You mentioned not patios, etc. But if someone, say for example, was to do an addition to the rear of a property, we're still going to require road widening at the front of the property?
Melanie?
Madam Chair, to the councillor, are you referring to residential properties?
Yes.
Typically, most residential properties are not required to go through site plan.
Okay.
So this would apply to multiple residential developments only.
I heard you mention about patios, and so this is all with new development, not existing.
The patios would be for commercial, for commercial uses
Super,
only.
thank you. And lastly, on the community meetings, so I just want to ask a question because I'm just trying to get an understanding. Because right now, notice of complete application is circulated to the residents within 120 meters of a development. Before I get that, that's when I know this development is before us. So are we saying we're going to be changing that process? Because until I receive that notice of complete application, which the residents receive at the same time, I can't, or the developer can't arrange a meeting unless they're doing it without anybody even knowing that an application's been received here. So just explain that process for me, please.
Melanie?
Certainly, through the chair to the
Thank you.
councillor. The process for development applications would not be changing. The way the process is intended to work is that when we receive a formal consultation application, it would be at that time that we would identify if it's considered something major, and this could be done in consultation with the councillor as well, that we would request the applicant to have a meeting before an application is submitted, one of the criteria in the guidelines is that they would need to include an invitation to the councillor to attend the meeting as well.
Councillor?
Not a problem. I just want to know where it would start in a process, because I've had some developments where I had no idea what it was until, or what was coming forward or what was planned until I received the formal consultation, complete formal consultation documentation, and that is circulated at the same time to a neighborhood. So I just wanted to be sure there's a step in there before it comes to that, so that that's fine if the developer does, is I have neighborhood meetings on developments once I receive information on the development. And I just wanted to ask one other question then, as far as the minutes. So you're saying this is going to be mandatory for minutes, and this would be if a developer holds the neighborhood meeting. So if I hold a neighborhood meeting, then I now have to provide minutes of that meeting?
Melanie?
Through you, Madam Chair, to the councillor, we would like to have a clear record of what's happened at the community consultation meeting. That's why we've included the minutes as a requirement in the guidelines. So this would only be for those meetings where we've applied the community consultation requirement. The developer would not be required to take minutes for any meeting that they're holding outside of this requirement.
Councillor? Microphone, please.
Sorry, thank you. And I guess it just leaves there's sort of a lot of loose ends right now as far as process, because there's different ways of things to move forward. So I guess it'll just be a matter of, as an application comes forward, understanding what parameters staff are going to put around that. So I just want to make sure that we understand it. Thank you.
I have Councillor Partridge.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm very, very pleased to see this come forward. As I think most of you know, we've had numerous discussions over the past couple of years on, the setback requirement, or I should say the road widening requirement, but also the process for public meetings. And I really appreciate the questions that Councillor Pearson has raised, because, when the application notice goes out, I automatically ask the developer to host a public meeting. Now, I would say 98% of the time they are more than willing, but the odd time I do have one, and it's happened twice, where they have refused, just said no, they're not interested in having a public meeting. So, I guess my question through you, Madam Chair, is this will now make it a requirement. So the developer of a commercial or residential development that's got an application in cannot just pick and choose whether or not they're going to have the meeting. It is a requirement. Is that accurate?
You, Madam Chair, to the councillor, it would be a requirement. Our intent was not to apply it to every development application, only ones where they were considered major or transformational or in certain key areas. Where a meeting might be beneficial before they actually submit the application. They could still have a meeting after the initial notice is mailed out at the request of a councillor, but this would be only for ones where we think that they should have a meeting to introduce the project before they actually submit the application.
Councillor?
Well, thank you for clarifying that. I think that's, certainly important. Waterdown is one of the, largest growth areas, and most of the development up there, I would say, is transformational to the local committee. But that concerns me just a little bit, Madam Chair. Traffic is one of the biggest issues we have in Waterdown, and yet with even developments that are applications and consultation that have come through in the last month, there's been no requirement for traffic studies because traffic isn't an issue. Well, traffic is an issue, and it's a major issue. So I just have a little bit of a concern that this would only be for certain applications and not for all applications. So I'm just wondering, who makes that call? What defines what is transformational?
Thank you. Melanie, what defines large applications? Because I heard that as well, or transformational.
Chair to the councillor, as Melanie has indicated, this would be identified at the formal consultation stage. So it would be in consultation with staff and myself and then the ward councillor to determine if the community meeting would be required. as Melanie indicated, it would be just for larger, more transformational projects. So we would be looking at some of the policies in the official plan, whether it's within a node or on one of our corridors, or whether it's proposing a development that would be different from perhaps what is existing. So we'd want to, make sure that the community is aware of it. As well, the community consultation document that comes in would need to identify how they've addressed the concerns. So I think that's part of the rationale for it, and requiring it after formal consultation but before an actual application, so that staff can see how they've been able to demonstrate how they've incorporated the community concerns into their proposal. And as well, this requirement for community consultation won't change any of the other requirements that are identified through formal consultation. So traffic impact studies, all of that, whether it would be, whether there's a community consultation meeting or not, it doesn't negate the need for those studies as well.
Councillor?
All right, and thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that, Anita. I just, I hold public meetings. I want my residents to see what is being proposed, and I don't necessarily care how big the development is. If it is going to impact my community, I want that public meeting, and I want it ahead of time. And I think everybody knows that. So I'm pleased to hear that it will be in consultation with the local councillor, because, after the fact is just not good enough for residents. And we don't want to have planning meetings where we, have residents coming in hearing for the first time or only within the last couple of months about a development. It really should be at the beginning of that application process. So thanks very much for that. And I fully support this report.
Thank you. And Councillor Pearson, would you please take the chair? I'm the last person on the speakers list. Through you, Chair, to Melanie, I'm really pleased to see about the public engagement piece, because I brought it forward before that we seem to do these public meetings. The staff report's got the recommendation in, and then the residents come in, and they, in my opinion, are the experts at living there. And they've brought some concerns to this application that nobody had considered. So I'm really pleased to see this. So my question through you, Chair, to Melanie is, there's always this fear, the 180 days. Application comes in, we do the formal consultation. At what point does the 180 days begin? And how much time is there now to get a public meeting together before the staff report's created?
Through you, Madam Chair, to the councillor, the community consultation requirement that we're proposing would be outside of the 180 days. So it would be fully before they submit an application that we've deemed complete. Perfect. So it would not impact that timeline.
So if I, through you, Chair, get this straight, we have an application that comes forward, formal consultation is reviewed. The requirement is, or the ask is, to have a public meeting. This is prior to the staff report being completed, and this is prior to the 180 days that starts the clock?
That is correct. It's prior to them actually submitting their full application.
Perfect, thank you. And I don't know whether or not, Chair, that this belongs into this segment, but I've often come to this committee to say that a lot of these developments are absolutely gorgeous. They have beautiful gateways with masonry work on it and lots of landscaping. Is that also part and parcel with this, that we can go to if we looked at asking or setting up some sort of requirement that if a big, huge gateway is done, whether it be on road allowance, that we're asking the developer to put an endowment account together so that it can have maintenance costs going forward, or is this outside that?
Sorry, through the chair, that'd be outside this process. This strictly deals with of timing of when you would do your initial public consultation.
Okay, thank you for that. And those are my questions at this time. So, thank you. I'll take the chair back. And I see no other questions for staff. May I have a motion, please, to receive that presentation? Councillor Partridge, Councillor Pearson, all those in favor? Thank you. We have one registered speaker, but I will be calling out 3 times if there are any others from the public that would like to speak. Thanks, Suzanne. Okay, so we have Sergio Mancia is the first registered speaker. Please come down to the podium. As always, everyone, please put your name and address and contact information at the book provided for Ida, please. Thank you.
No presentation on this. Good morning, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. Be brief. Sergio Mancha, Urban Solutions, and we'd just like to register.
Sergio, it's really hard to hear you.
There we are. I apologize.
Thank you. Perfect.
Too many things up here. Sergio Mancha from Urban Solutions. Just want to briefly chat with respect to this particular report. First and foremost, I'd like to thank staff for bringing this forward. I know Melanie and Mr. Robichaud and Mr. Thorne have put a lot of thought and energy into this report, and I think that's fantastic. With regards to this particulars, there are three issues that I just really want to touch upon, and that deals with the right-of-ways, the design review panel, and of course this community consultation. With regards to the right-of-way issues, I think it's long overdue. On numerous occasions that we've had files and projects where developers and just interested persons per se to infills and et cetera have walked away because of the onerous requirements for these right-of-ways. And staff is stuck between a rock and a hard place because of their official plans. So I applaud and thank staff for bringing this forward. I think the ability to use better techniques of streetscape and design and boulevard design and working with various other departments within the process is where we're at, or we should be at, and stepping it up this way is a good method. So thank you to staff, and we look forward on that. The two other concerns, or two other issues that I have some concerns with, and they basically deal with timing. I don't think they are, for the record, a bad idea. They're actually very good. We're always harping, longtime resident here of the city, grew up here, and I always say, we need to take a little bit more time and attention to materials, to design, and how these things look, because it doesn't really cost you a whole heck of a lot more. But the question becomes, when are we going to get into the door? When can an application get before you? Councillor Johnson's chair mentioned about the 180 days. No one really likes to use that clock, in my opinion. No one wants to go off to the board. I shouldn't say everyone, not particularly my clients and a lot of the consultants that we work with prefer to dealing with staff. Having said that, for example, the consultation process at this stage, in my opinion, is just a step too early. And what concerns me is alarming a greater community or neighborhood of a project that might be coming. Because remember, the development review process, and I don't mean to lecture committee here by any means, and question staff on this, is simply an exercise to determine the studies, the requirements, and it's an excellent tool to say, are we going forward or not? 75% of the times we do, and about 50% of those discussions are, do we need this report or not? But the question then, I go off to a meeting that's going to be held, and we really don't know if that project is in the queue. So that's the concern I have. I think that it's a very important process, and Madam Chairman, I've been doing this for 27 years, and we've had public meetings that date back to 1992, 93, where we just have, in the basement of a church, we get together and discuss things when the application is somewhat, has some foundations. And again, I'm concerned that the request by staff at this level can do a few things. That's, first of all, scare off any applicants or developers, investors, the motivation to proceed, because they go into a room with people that won't really understand what we're trying to achieve, because we're really not there yet. We haven't finished those reports. We haven't submitted any three-dimensional thinking just yet. Conceptually, it might be there. So that's the concern I have. The intent, the objective, the goal, I'm all for it. I think the more we can answer, the more we can communicate with those communities, I think the faster, the quicker, the better. With regards to the other component, the Design Review Committee, again, a very strong new committee, and it's new. It's in its infancy stages. The mandate, in my understanding, was for larger built formed in the downtown area. And to now incorporate in the official plan, and this deals with the previous issue also, to incorporate it within the official plan, in my opinion, is a bit dangerous. Because once again, you're going before a committee, or a panel rather, that's not council approved, staff picked, and maybe have an opinion on a development or other, and again, it detracts or it may scare off the process of submission. So again, once we have a three-dimensional process going through, which is the site plan, then I would agree. Let's get before this committee. Let's discuss things. Let's see if it meets various criteria. So again, I think we're all on the same page, but just a little ahead of each other. Not to quote in the report, but there are components within it that, in my opinion, that would allow some of this flexibility. And again, I caution committee that right now you're dealing with an official plan amendment. This isn't simply a guideline. And with that will come structure that, as noted before, will be in place, but at the same time, when is it the proper time to be in place? And that's up to now discretion. So we might be at very much odds on some of this stuff. So in conclusion, Madam Chairman, and I'm open to any questions, again, I thank staff, and I think this is a positive report. Me and Mr. Thorne did chat about this right-of-way issue. There's a number of infill projects that we have on the books that are all being challenged with this type of stuff. The other components, again, I think they're fabulous, but I would ask that maybe that we take a step back. In addition, and I don't want to speak on behalf of the association, et cetera. There are going to be individuals that are also concerned about how this has come about, and we will be bringing forward they will be bringing forward some similar questions. Having said that, maybe the idea is to just table this for 30 days for some more stakeholders to just have some input because of the concern. I think that the last 60 days has gone by quickly. With Christmas in hand and having the formal or final report in our possession over the weekend, there have been a couple red flags. And I'm sorry to bother the committee on this. I think it's very important. I think it's important for our city and our city to grow properly. Thank you.
Thank you. Quick question, please, through you, Chair. Councillor Pearson, if you could take the chair, please. Mr. Manchia, I went through and did some research. Municipalities within the GTA. 99% of them do a two-stage approach. One is to go to the public first and then create the staff report and bring it to Planning Committee for approval second.
Correct.
So I understand the timing. I understand formal consultation is really just to throw things at the wall to see what sticks. But would it not be cost effective for you as a stakeholder, major stakeholder in an application to bring it to the public to find out what tweaking needs to be done as well? At the formal consultation, you are explained that you need a traffic study, a noise study, whatever those studies are required. When you go to the public, it may turn out that some of them are not required, but there might be something else that is required. So isn't it more frustrating to come here to ask for something to be approved, find out from the public, who are the experts at living there, that there's flooding conditions. There are things that we never took into consideration because on the map it doesn't show. So would it not be cost effective for you to go back to the public, albeit just a small fraction of a price of holding a PIC, to find out what their concerns are, and then bring those concerns forward in creating the formal application?
And point well taken, and you're absolutely right. There are a number of municipalities with two processes, or two-tier processes. And I completely understand your point about understanding it. But if I can put it as simple as this, when we go into DRT, the majority of times we may have a sketch or some feasibility studies of what it may look like. We then try to get some feedback, like you indicated, and we still don't have an assurance of what we're going in for. It might change. And my only concern is if we're taking minutes, we're going before a committee, a group of residents that are passionate about their neighborhood or passionate about their, and then I don't have the information that they actually are going to have when I submit because things may change. There's that gap. See, and the gap, once your submission is in, Madam Chairman, then you're really there. And maybe the question is, do you have it the day before or the day after? Well, I think the day after is more prudent because then we have a better understanding. You still have a long journey. You still have a long journey with staff and the public to change things with the councillor. And you know as well as I do, we've had 3 public meetings, informal public meetings on applications. There's nothing to be feared about on these information meetings. They're productive, absolutely. To me, for the record, is prior to and making it a condition of an application being deemed complete.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Chair. I guess my bottom line is, would it not be much more simpler, and would it not be much more, it make the process a lot easier for any applicant who has public support going forward? When you come to a PIC, they put their tweaking in, they ask for their requests, you go back to the board, you tweak your application, you come forward and say, voila, we've done what the public have asked us to do. So to me, having it earlier in the process would make more sense than try to change something, because oftentimes we've heard people at the podium going, well, a lot of money's been put into this already. Well, this could maybe stop you from spending a lot of money and maybe put it towards what will make the community and the public support it.
I think the word stopping is the key. We don't want to stop good development, good progress. I think we're all on the same page. And I think this may, in fact, lead to stopping. Councillor Partridge made a point about before, the word before. I think we just need to take a step back and define what before means. I'm not implying that any of your ideas or what this report is suggesting is bad. It's not bad planning. It's just bad timing. And I don't want to see applications not go in, not progress. I mean, we're all fortunate enough that this community is moving forward, and I would hate to see it that things such as this may not, at the end of the day, do exactly what it's intended to do. So I just caution committee that we may want to take a step back and maybe even 30 to 45 days to just talk about this, because there are a number of stakeholders that are just recently, since yesterday, found out, and hopefully we can come back here all happy and move forward with these policies in the OP. And again, this is an OP amendment. This is not a guideline.
Okay,
thank you. Thank you. And sorry.
Questions? Any other? I'll take the chair back. Any questions for the presenter? Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to ask Mr. Manchin, Sergio, have you had any dealings with the development review panel that has been put in place as a pilot project?
In fact, my item 6 points, last item, was before the committee. It is a downtown project, and I was under the assumption that this panel was established for these more intense throughways. I'm a little concerned with having a site that would be, semi-rural, like a rural site that would have to be before committee. Not to imply that staff doesn't have the discretion to or not to, but, one morning someone would decide that, hey, you know what, we need to go before it. Again, it prevents me from having my applications deemed complete. And that's my concern. Not implying that it's not a good idea, but maybe it is a site plan issue. It is a site plan issue.
Would there be a concern, and I hear what staff are saying, that it may be needed, may not be needed. I have some concerns of that because it's not a definite, so it's a staff's choice.
And I don't want to speak on behalf of Mr. Thorne or Melanie, but I believe it is a discretion of staff, and then we start locking horns and applications don't move forward, and without I just don't want to sound that we do have rights as applicants to be before, put that application in. This could seriously slow things down and not have the ability to engage under the Act.
Councillor?
Thank you. No, that's it from me.
Thank you. I see no other questions.
Thank you.
Move to receive, please. Councillor Partridge, Councillor Green, all those in favor. Thank you. Now I need to say this 3 times. Are there anyone here for the public who would like to speak to this matter? Thank you. So I've got 2. Again, when you come down to the podium, please introduce yourself and sign in. Morning.
Morning. I think you all know who I am, but I'm Suzanne Mamel, and I'm the Executive Officer of the Hamilton Halton Home Builders Association. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I want to speak on the report, and I thank staff for proposing it. There's a lot of really good things in the report, and the intent of my discussion really isn't to talk about the content of the report. Of the 3 topics, it's really to talk about consultation, which is one of the topics of the report. The city has imposed or provided the Home Builders Association and other development industry people with a development industry liaison group. And the intent of that group is to talk about issues just such as these that are brought forth today. My request is that 2 of the 3 topics on this report be deferred until such time as they can be talked through at that development industry liaison group. Our last meeting was in November the 23rd, I believe. And at that point, we were notified that we had a previous discussion about right-of-ways, and I'm very supportive of that initiative. We were notified that the other 2 items were coming down the pipes. And in a previous meeting of that group, I had suggested that it was more appropriate if staff were to let us know something was coming and afford us the opportunity at a subsequent meeting to actually have the information and then talk about that. And that didn't happen on these 2 items. A lot of the questions that Mr. Manchia brought up are very pertinent, and I would have the same questions. Can we have a discussion with staff about the timing? What is best? What is the role of the design review panel? The next development industry liaison meeting is next Monday. We haven't had a meeting since November where these things were advised, and so I guess my thinking is that if this could be deferred until the next planning meeting after that, where we are afforded that opportunity to discuss it in the manner in which it was expected that we do, I would very much appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the presenter? Seeing none, motion to receive. Councillor Partridge, Councillor Pearson, all those in favour? Carried, thank you. Morning. Introduce yourself for public record, please.
Good morning. Joey Coleman, resident of Ward 2. I was previously active member of the Beasley Neighborhood Association. I have resigned from the BNA about 2 months ago to make sure that my activities do not relate to the association and to avoid any confusion about roles. But in that role at the BNA, what I'm speaking to you from is the experience of being a resident and interacting with the planning process. Firstly, I want to congratulate staff, Mr. Thorne, Mr. Robichaud is not here, and the other staff that have worked on this for a very good report and for moving public consultation to the front of the process. It's often said that public consultation in Hamilton means that they're telling us what they plan to do instead of consulting us to hear what we want them to do. And it depends, where do you put that public consultation on how people feel? And it sounds like, and I'm agreeing with Mr. Manchia, who I have great respect for, and his company's been doing phenomenal public consultation on projects in the Beasley neighborhood and should be complimented for putting all their planning documents on their website, making them public, that maybe we need to spend another 2 to 4 weeks just tweaking some parts of this report, because it's an excellent report, and I would say we're 95% of the way there. And the 5% is the public consultation, which has not yet had the chance to occur because the report only became public a week ago. But I also want to express that the city has a responsibility here that it's not yet fulfilling. I look at other cities, Ottawa, Burlington, for example, are 2 that jump right out, where I can follow all planning applications using an RSS feed on their website. I can't follow any planning applications on the City of Hamilton's website. And I look at the council to bear the responsibility for this. I see Ms. Lemaine's on the front row here and does a good job as communications officer for planning and ACTEV. I don't know how she manages all her files, but as a member of the BNA, when I was dealing with planning files, Ann was our primary contact. And there's only one Ann. So I think that the planning committee needs to consider what resources are required for the city to match Burlington's website to begin with and have all planning applications listed on the website. available for following via an RSS feed with all the documents scanned and on the website. I think we're heading in the right direction in terms of having public meetings, but without the web component, the only people who can get the information are those who can attend a public meeting. And I'm sure the councillors well understand the challenge of balancing work and public meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the speaker? Councillor Partridge.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And Joey, welcome to the podium. I appreciate your comments, but I'm a little, I guess, confused. You're supportive of the public consultation, as I know you are, but you're asking for it to be agreeing with the report being tabled. But what are you asking for? Because what I'm hearing, just let me finish. What I'm hearing is that you want a more comprehensive report that may take longer and would include having the access through the internet on our website. Could you just clarify that for me?
Joey?
So I think what I'm saying with the public consultation is where is that right spot to take it to the public? So the Beasley Neighborhood Association, we're very fortunate that we're very well organized. Our planning subgroup, and I say are in the past tense, I must clarify again that I have left those roles. Our planning subgroup has people who are professionals, including 2 professional planners who work outside of the city. And we get planning files very early in the process. But there are times where members of our group become concerned when they see something that's very rough and not yet at that point for wider public dissemination. So where is that point where the developer is far enough in the process that they can show it to the public and the public not assume that's the final well, the public will assume it's the final product, and we don't get into that area where you just have the box on the grid and you don't have the final design. So it's trying to find that area, and I'm not a registered planner, I'm not a member of staff, but it sounds like we need to have a good discussion about where is that point for the public engagement, because too early could be detrimental to the process, in my opinion. Too late is detrimental as well. In terms of the internet, it could be a recommendation from this committee to staff to review that and determine what the cost would be. So we do phase 1 here, which is this report, and then we add the internet component hopefully by the end of the year.
Thank you, Councillor.
Yes, and thank you, Madam Chair. So that's good then. You're not wanting to delay this to include that internet process, because I agree with you. To me, it's completely separate. Could be something that's a direction from this committee, but I would really hate to hold up that public consultation. And if I may, Madam Chair, certainly the tweaking that goes on between the first meeting, and I'm going to talk just from my personal experience, but I believe you have as well. When we have that first public meeting, when the formal consultation has happened, then if there's tweaking that needs to happen, the developers that I've dealt with have no problem reducing units or changing the configuration. We have another public meeting, particularly with those that, you know, were most wanting to express their opinion or disgruntled with the. So I don't really see where that should hold up the requirement today that's in this report. Get it through, get it going, make it a requirement. There's still time for more consultation going forward. So that's not really a question, it's just a comment.
Thank you.
But I thank you for your indulgence.
Okay, thank you. Councillor, no? Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Move to receive, please. Councillor Pearson, Councillor Collins, all those in favor. Thank you. I've got Councillor Pearson who would like to speak, and Councillor Green, you're second.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I certainly appreciate.
Oh, hang on. You know what? I forgot. I just need to do this 3 times, and then we can close the public meeting. Sorry, and then allow comments. Sorry, Councillor Pearson. I was just remiss. Anyone here that would like to speak to this item 6.1? Going once? Anyone here from the public who would like to speak to 6.1? Going twice? Third and final time. Anyone here to speak to 6.1? Thank you. Now I need a motion to close the public meeting. Councillor Pearson, Councillor Green, all those in favor? Thank you. Now, Councillor Pearson, you're on.
And I'm going to defer to Councillor Green as the first-time speaker, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I've heard the 180, the clock ticking, and I know that there has been situations where that has been used in the past. So through you, Madam Chair, to staff, what other provinces, like what are some of the other comparisons to other provinces? Am I correct in my understanding that some other provinces don't even have a clock, that they require this full consultation process to work through before it comes to committee?
Jason?
Through the chair, yes. I mean, certainly in other provinces, they don't even have an OMB. So our process is a bit unique in that there is the appeals process to the OMB with the clock ticking as part of that. So different provinces have different models, but yeah, there certainly are cases where there is that clock doesn't exist.
Thank you, Councillor.
And it does happen from time to time, although it being the exception, not the rule, that some people in their strategy perhaps might run the clock out in order to take it straight to the OMB and circumvent local processes here. Has that happened?
Jason?
Through the chair, I wouldn't want to comment as to whether that was by intent or design, but certainly there are applications that go through that surpass that timeline and then get appealed to the board on non-decision.
Thank you, Councillor.
Just to comment on this, I think, you know, in the very short time that I've been here, a year and change, having witnessed some of these processes unfold in front of us, it seems to make sense that, you know, comment was made that when is it too early to begin public engagement? And I would disagree. I would think that the earlier the public engagement, the better. Allow these processes to happen before our clock starts ticking, you know, the shot clock that we got here. So I fully support staff recommendations and anything that would move towards a more open and comprehensive engagement with the community. Our hope is that as this my hope is that as this policy evolves, planners, developers will become more sophisticated in how they can communicate to the community what their intents are, rather than get into this, you know, 11th hour emergency type situation that we oftentimes find ourselves in. And I just want to make the comment, as it was made, pertaining to the availability for people to be present to meetings during the day. I would fully agree with the previous delegation that there's tons of space for technology, but I would also suggest that the private sector should also share in this process and be open with the communities. The developments that I've seen that have been successful have all done that well, present delegates included. And, you know, having those early conversations, open and honest, hopefully will allow our staff to then gear down and really drill down on the details that matter, so that when it does come to planning, we're not racing against the clock. Because I never think from a decision-making situation that's a good place to be in, a good position to be in. So I strongly support this recommendation as it stands, and any further recommendations that would require greater community input in terms of how we are creating and co-creating our communities. So hats off to staff on this one. I think it's phenomenal. I think we're moving in the right direction. And in terms of provinces, as I understand it, my very limited experience with planning, I think that we have the most amount of encumbrances from a local decision-making process. And so I'm happy to see us go in this direction and don't see the need to wait, and happy to see it evolve as it does. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Councillor Pearson, then Councillor Collins, and then myself.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Certainly appreciate all the comments around the table. And don't take away from the report and the recommendations. Certainly, I just think there's a little bit of tweaking that is needed. First and foremost, it concerns me that Suzanne came down and from Hamilton Home Builders Association has mentioned that it has not gone before liaison committee. We as members who sit around this table that are on Open for Business subcommittee, and I chair it, certainly know that we have tried to engage the development community, the every business community out there in making things more accessible and understandable here around the table and when they come in to do applications. So I really am concerned that this hasn't gone to them, and I think it should. I don't think we have, you know, I don't think we're not slamming on the brakes, but I think we have to take a sober step back and be sure that they have contributed their viewpoints. And in all fairness to them, especially in light of the fact that we have an Open for Business, and if we're not engaging, then why are we having an Open for Business subcommittee? With regards to the design review panel, I don't have a problem with it. I do have a concern that we just approved a recommendation to extend the mandate for this as a pilot project to the end of 2016, and now we're putting it into an official plan. So I really have concern. I don't know how that came about when we're still really evaluating a review and a test, I guess, a pilot project, as is stated. So I really would like to have more information come back from the community as to what it's about. And certainly, I believe that these do have right places in the processes, but I think we need better information coming back to us, and also in the documentation, as was mentioned here by Melanie. Thank you, Melanie. I do have concern of saying, okay, but staff may decide here and may not. When it's in official plan, how do we differentiate if it goes to a board and becomes an OMB issue when we say, well, maybe, maybe not, you need it, maybe you do need it? I have concerns and would like better clarification for that as far as definite areas and parameters of where we're going to say it's needed. On the community consultation, absolutely no problem with that. I hold community meetings with developments that I have coming in the ward. Sometimes they're just open houses. Sometimes they're just, well, most of the time they're open houses. So, I mean, it has strengthened the process a bit, but I do have a concern just as to when this community meeting should take place. Because if I don't have anything to present to the community, then what's the validity of having a meeting, other than if you're questioning residents on what they want to see, but that's already dictated in the zoning bylaw of what can and cannot go into these areas. So those are some of the concerns that I want to be sure that we are able to make sure following through. And I'm sure with the meeting with the liaison committee that some of this come back. So I have no problems other than making sure that we tighten up exactly what this bylaw is going to be going forward as an official plan amendment. So I certainly would like to, Madam Chair, at this time, refer this, and if I can, I'll move that it be referred to the liaison committee, come back to us so that we can have their viewpoints and make sure that it's incorporated. And Councillor Connolly would second that.
Thank you, and I'll come back to you for that. Councillor Collins.
Thanks, and I'm happy to receive the report on the design review panel. As you know, Councillor Barr and I brought the motion originally to form it, so it's, by my estimation, it's worked fairly well, and it's consistent with what's happened in other communities. But I mean, it's still in place, so I'm happy that it's living to see another day. I do have some questions, though, in terms of the formal consultation and the requirement for a mandatory public meeting. What's the litmus test for a major project?
Thank you, Councillor. Oh, sorry, Melanie or Jason? Nita?
Chair to the councillor. Sorry, can I just confirm, are you referring to the community consultation or the design review panel?
The community consultation. I know that Jason didn't want to comment as to whether or not some developers have used the 180-day time frame as a leverage or a tool to get to the OMB, but certainly with that, they avoid a public meeting in this forum or another one in the neighborhood. And I know that situation exists. I mean, I think we could all point to one or more in our own area that's happened in the past. But I do have a question. If it becomes part of the OPA, who determines what files are required to have a public meeting?
Requirement for a public meeting, please.
So through the chair, it is going to be at staff's discretion, ultimately at the chief planner's discretion, to exercise whether or not it's a significant application that is going to require a pre-consultation public meeting. Already that determination is generally made in suggesting certain applications where we would suggest that the applicant go out and do a pre-application public meeting, but we have no leverage to require it. So you will see that at formal consultation where we will suggest it at times, judging by whether or not we think it may be particularly controversial, significant. There is discretion built in. It is a discretionary authority of the chief planner. I'm not sure how far down the road we could go of prescribing it super precisely in terms of size of application, number of units. It is the kind of thing that we do, I would suggest, have to rely in some sense on staff's discretion to know which ones are going to have significant impacts, which ones are going to garner a lot of public interest. We do that in consultation with the councillor. So, as I said, those determinations are already made generally today, but our only power right now is to suggest it. This would give us the power to require it, and the power to require before the clock starts ticking. So has been commented a couple of times, we've talked about the 180-day. There's also a 120-day clock if we're talking about zoning applications. If we and currently that's a lot to try to squeeze into 120 days. If we wait until after application to require an initial consultation, it's a lot to try to squeeze in to try to get that input from the community and to have that also shape the applicant, have that shape the application, and then have that shape staff's analysis of the application all within 120 days becomes very difficult, which is why staff's putting this recommendation before you now. And to the question of whether it's too soon in the process or where exactly in the process, I wouldn't anticipate that applicants would walk out of formal consultation and hold a public open house the next day. My sense is they would look at when they actually have sufficient information as they're moving towards an application, which would require them to prepare all the background studies, the traffic studies, the natural heritage impact studies, whatever else is required. At a certain point in time, as they've done some of the background analysis, but before they actually finalize the application, is when they would host the public meeting.
Okay, thanks for that. Yeah, and just as an aside, and it is related to what we have in front of us, what's the status? I had asked for a report back and a template that would illustrate to us almost a development tracking chart that showed applications that had been submitted. So we didn't reach the end of the 120 days or the end of the 180 days. We could actually monitor at this committee almost an outstanding business list. Status of that coming to us.
So through the chair, staff has been working on that report. We're currently targeting the end of March planning committee meeting. I have not seen the report yet, but it is circulating in draft form. So that is one of our OBL directions is to bring that report forward. So we'll be coming forward very soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Pearson, take the chair, please, for me. Thank you. As stated before, the formal consultation is really to see what sticks to the wall. The public information's evening or weekend, whatever you want to call it, is really up to the applicant when that happens. So the staff are not asking for it to be the next day. So after the formal consultation, they can go back, they can regroup, and then bring it forward to the public. Oftentimes, what I find, and when I did my research, there are 29 municipalities that are on this list. Only 3 do it the way we do it. All others do it in a 2-stage format. The first stage is to go to the public, and then the second stage is the staff report is created, and then it comes forward. So oftentimes, when you sit in some of these meetings that we have here, it's perceived as a done deal. So there's nothing that the public can do. They feel completely helpless that they have no input on what happens into their community. This, in my opinion, it welcomes more public engagement. It doesn't screw up, as far as I'm concerned. It would help the developer and it would help the staff to tweak the report so that it now satisfies both the public and the developer. A good example of that was we have a big, huge development that's coming around the villages of Lancaster. So we had a public information meeting at the villages of Lancaster. All the experts that live there stood up and explained flooding, and also it's one roadway for 800 residents. One roadway. So the staff had to pull back and realize that that was one big, huge, major component that may have been overlooked. I don't know, but at least it was pointed out at the time. So my opinion that this application now has gone back to take a look at what the public concerns are about, and the staff report can be written up accordingly. So in my opinion, the sooner you get the community involved, the better it is for all concerned. So those are my comments right now. If it gets deferred, it gets deferred, but my preference is to move this forward. With Councillor Partridge in my own wards, with all the development we've got going, and Councillor Conley in your ward, all the developments that we have coming forward, in my opinion, it's sooner rather than later. So those are my comments, and I'll take the chair back, please. Councillor Conley, I've got you down.
Thank you. I'm not against the report at all, but we talk about having public consultation, engagement. We talk about that all the time, but we're not having the same engagement with the developers and with the other stakeholders. That's the only reason I like to have their say in it. Not that they're going to change anything. Maybe they will. Maybe we can tweak it. But if we're open, let's be open not only for the residents, which I 100% agree with, but let's be open with the developers and the other stakeholders to give their input And I'd like to have a time period. I just don't want to refer it and it's in limbo for the next 30 days would be fine with me to have some consultation and come back for the final report. And maybe we can tweak it and maybe we can make it better or not. But
Thank you, Councillor Connolly. Going back to Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And certainly, I thank Councillor Connolly for reiterating. I'm not sure when the liaison committee meets next. Mr. Thorne, are you aware of the timing?
Through the chair, the next meeting is on Monday.
On Monday. So it could very appropriately come back to the next planning committee meeting with whatever inputs comes from that subcommittee. So I think some of the points that I've raised here is, I mean, again, my concern that, and believe me, I'm not saying that I'm opposed to the design review panel. It's just we had it set as a pilot program. You've got to remember that's how it was set, and now we're throwing it into an official plan. So just want to be sure we do this right. This isn't, you know, let's just do it today and then change tomorrow. That's my only concern, is let the community, let the development community have a look at this and bring us back what needs to be. As far as community consultation, we can do that. That can be done anytime. It can be done through the councillor. It can be done through the developers. So I don't think it's going to hold up anything to say that it's not going to happen. And as Mr. Thorne has mentioned now, it's been up to the chief planner as far as your discretion of whether or not these are required by the developers. Is that correct through you, Madam Chair?
Mr. Thorne?
Through the chair, it's been up to the chief planner as to whether or not it be requested, but the chief planner's never had the authority to require it.
Okay.
So so it's just up to the authority whether or not they make the planning staff would make the request.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I don't think delaying this to allow for the proper process, as I said, open for business has come a long way. I think initially when we started out, I can't even remember how many years ago, there were probably over 100 items that were on the list. We're down to probably a dozen. And I think that in order to send, you know, a clear message that, you know, we are on our mandate, we are following it, we need to have this referred and at least give it that time component to have the liaison committee review this as well. Thank you. So my motion, as I said, to refer it is on the floor, moved by Councillor Connolly.
And
Seconded.
the date to come back to the next planning meeting.
As staff feel appropriate, absolutely.
Well, your motion is in front of you, moved by Councillor Pearson, second by Councillor Connolly, to delay this until the next planning meeting, which is in 2 weeks. All those in favor?
In order to allow for the engagement of the liaison committee.
In order to allow the liaison committee to meet, all those in favor for the delay? Opposed? Yep, sure. Oh, sorry, I called the question. Question was called, sorry.
Okay, then I'll just oppose it.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And any opposed to delaying it? Okay. Well, you got to put your hand up so we all know. Sorry, put your hand up. Thank you. So, Ida, it's defeated. Thank you. Any other questions about the staff report, please? Councillor Green, did you have a question?
Just wanted to go on the record. They had 60 days of opportunity for input on the docket for 60 days. Is that right?
To the chair, no. So the report this report was made public, I believe it would be Tuesday or Wednesday of last week. The item that was brought before the liaison group in November was to advise them that we were looking at the complete application requirements as it relates to these issues, but they did not at that time see the actual report or recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor
Well, you
Green.
called the question, so I couldn't ask it. So to follow up on that, what process do they have when this type of work is being, when this type of bylaw is being put together?
Jason?
So through the chair, if I understand the question correctly, if there's still concerns once this,
No. Sorry, the question was, what process did private sector, did the industry play? If I could just ask my question, that'd be great. What did they have that, what inputs did they have during this process that brought us to this point today? Did they have any, or did the staff just go away in isolation and then come back and give them a week and then put this forward?
Jason?
So in terms of what was raised at DIL, at the Development Industry Liaison Group in November, the issue of the road windings was discussed, and there were some specifics around what staff was considering with respect to that issue. On the complete application, there wasn't a great deal of discussion. It was stated that staff is looking at complete applications as it relates to some of the consultation requirements, but in terms of what the industry would have seen in terms of what exactly was being proposed, they would not have seen that until this report was made public last week.
Thank you, Councillor Green.
Again, this is on the process now, having this already been called to question, and I apologize.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, that was
That's
technicality.
okay. Well, it's process. I appreciate you indulging me to ask these questions on process, because I'm trying to better understand how, in the conversation of community engagement, we get to a point where this is only made available last week, and then it's here for our decision now, without that input there. If you could just help me understand that a little bit better, it seems there's a little bit of irony in that for me.
Through the chair, I understand the concern from the industry that they would like to have had more time to see the actual specifics of what was being proposed. But like I said, in terms of the industry or members of the public, or what they would have seen for the first time in terms of the actual proposals was when the report was made public to all.
Councillor?
Okay, I mean, it's satisfied. It's a done deal for me, Madam Chair. It's just a matter of process. And, you know, if I'm going to oppose something, typically it's on principle or process. And, you know, for me, I understood that they saw this one coming. I guess maybe they haven't, is what I'm hearing now. But at any rate, it's already a done deal. I would hope then, I guess my last comments would be that if we're doing work this substantive, that's okay. I'll give you guys time to confer. I do it on my side all the time.
Sorry, through the chair, I was reminded by Anita, the report, as I said, was last week. The official plan amendment itself is a 17-day in advance of the public meeting is when the official plan amendment itself notice goes out, the official plan amendment is being contemplated for the public meeting.
So besides what was before us today, what other members of the public, including the private sector and the planning committee, submitted to this process?
Through the chair, formal submissions, we did not receive any during that 17-day period until what you would have seen before you in terms of some of the letters in the package and the presentations you heard today.
Okay.
Councillor?
So now we go away 2 weeks, we come back, we have a conversation again. I guess I'm just wondering why we just didn't put on the docket for, it means defeated, it's not going to happen at all?
Unless another motion comes forward reworded.
So we're not doing the design review at all now? Is that?
Okay, so we've got a process question here. My understanding is a motion was put forward. Hold it, folks. Just clarifying what just happened. A motion came forward to defer this staff report for 2 weeks to allow the liaison committee to meet, which addresses your concerns about the consultation.
Right.
So that's what was defeated at this point in time. So I'm open to a reworded motion to see if this is of the flavor of this.
I still have the floor.
That's fine. I'm still speaking to you.
Staff report is before us. We can either approve the report or not. Is that correct?
Or in part. Thank you.
Okay. That? Well, I still support it as it stands now anyways, as it's.
Okay, thank you. So, Jason, comment?
So through the chair, so just to clarify in terms of the design review panel, so if nothing is done with this report, the status quo would continue, which means the design review panel does continue to meet and have applications referred to them. It's just a question of when those applications would get referred to them. Same with consultation, it would be status quo would continue. If committee wishes, I know that the speaker spoke with concerns about the consultation aspects of this. If council wanted or committee wanted to proceed with the road widening component, put that in place and defer the other elements to discussion with the liaison group, that's something that committee could consider.
Councillor? Okay, thank you. Councillor Pearson.
Madam Chair, I'm going to try again then as an amended motion, if possible, that we we approve the road widening portion of the report, and that we defer the design, not the design consultation, yes, the design consultation review and the community review to the liaison committee for their review and report back to planning committee within a 2-week time period. Moved by myself, Councillor Collins, seconding.
Conley, any questions? Okay, all those in favor of moving this report forward, but pulling out the public consultation piece to go back to the liaison committee for further comment to be brought back here to the planning committee in 2 weeks.
And the design review component. In the road widening, that has no problem, fully supportive of that going through, and I don't think anyone here, as far as delegations that spoke, had any issue with the road widening portion.
Okay, thank you. The questions on the table. Any other questions? Councillor Partridge.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I guess, and I have no problem with that, but I don't understand why we're spending so much time talking about public consultation being deferred when there's no reason. What's in this report is good. It's a good report. And it's the residents out there, to me, that this is for. The public consultation is for our residents, where the developments are going to be happening, for them to be able to provide input. So I don't understand why we're not approving that part today. It really concerns me. Anyway, thank you.
Okay, folks, we're sort of at a standstill here. Call the question to defer this for 2 weeks to the next planning committee for further input from the industry. All those in favor? All those opposed? So now we have a staff report in front of us today. Move the staff report. Councillor Conley, seconded by Councillor Partridge. All those in favor? Carried. All those opposed? Councillor Pearson. Thank you. Okay, we're on to 6.2. Let me get my road map here. Application to amend the Urban Hamilton Official Plan, UHOP, and Ancaster Zoning Bylaw number 87 to 57, and for the approval of the draft plan of the subdivisions for lands located at 961, 989 Gardner Road East in Ancaster, PED 16003, Ward 12. Members of the public, in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act, please be advised that if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Council of the City of Hamilton before Council makes a decision regarding the amendment to the official plan and zoning bylaw and the draft plan of the subdivision, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Council of the City of Hamilton to the Ontario Municipal Board, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the OMB unless, in the opinion of the Board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. Folks, there are written comments here, 62-I. Can I please have a motion to receive that correspondence? Thank you, Councillor Conley. Councillor Collins, all those in favor? I just want to know if there are any other than the applicant, is there anybody here from the public who wish to speak to 6.2 in Ancaster? Anyone here from the public who wishes to speak to this 6.2? This is 87 and 50, sorry, hang on, let me get this straight. (961) to 989 Gardner Road. Anyone here? That's 3 times called. Can I have a motion, please, to close the public meeting? Councillor Pearson, Councillor Conley, all those in favor. What is the wish of this committee? I'm hearing a motion to move it. So is the agent here? Are you in agreement with the staff report? Thank you. Councillor Conley, second by Councillor Collins. Oh, geez, I'm so sorry. The gray hair? Ouch. Okay, moved by the young punk. Councillor Collins, second by Councillor Partridge. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. It is so moved. Sorry, Mr. Clackett, you're not on today. 7-1, thank you. 6-3, applications to amend the City of Stony Creek zoning bylaw 3692-92 for the approval of the draft plan subdivision for lands located at 72 2nd Road West in Stony Creek, PED 16048, Ward 9. Again, I need to read this out, folks. Members of the public, in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act, please be advised that if a person and/or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Council of the City of Hamilton before Council makes a decision regarding the zoning bylaw amendment and the draft plan of the subdivision, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Council of the City of Hamilton to the Ontario Municipal Board, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the OMB unless, in the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. I'm just going to find out and test the room. Is there anyone here from the public ready to speak, coming forward for 72 2nd Road East in Stony Creek, or 2nd Road West, sorry, in Stony Creek? Going once? Anyone here from the public here to speak to 72 2nd Road West in Stony Creek? Going twice? Third time, 6.3. Anyone here from the public willing to come in town to speak? Going 3 times? May I have a motion, please, to close off the public meeting? Councillor Partridge, Councillor Conley, all those in favor? Thank you. So what is the wish of this committee right now? Councillor Conley? Okay.
Just a couple of questions. Apparently this is going into a cul-de-sac that used to be there, and they're extending the cul-de-sac, right? Now, is there sidewalks in this new development or not?
Through you, Madam Chair, to the councillor, the current sidewalk on Hampshire Place stops at the Shady Glen intersection, which is just above these subject lands. The proposal will include the extension of that particular sidewalk on the west side of Hampshire Place down to the bottom of the proposed cul-de-sac. And in addition, a pedestrian connection to Erin Gate Park to the south will also be provided. So yes, a sidewalk on the west side of Hampshire Place with a connection to the park will be provided through this application.
Okay, Councillor?
Yeah, thank you. And through the chair, and there's a trail going out to 2nd Road. Is that right? There's a path, trail, nothing?
Alvin?
Through you, Madam Chair, to the councillor, I assume you're referring to the existing walkway of the Erin Gate Park.
Yeah, but
it's not part of
the one that goes out.
Hang on, just a second, please. Thank you.
Yep.
Can you finish?
Through you, Madam Chair, to the councillor, the only lands on 2nd Road West is a single detached residential lot that's proposed. There is an existing pathway south of these lands in Erin Gate Park that connects to 2nd Road West, which I believe you're referring to.
Councillor Conley.
No, that's fine. Thank you. Just
Okay.
clarification.
Thank you. And I know that we have the agent in the audience, please. Tom Milliken, sorry. Sorry. Are you in agreement with the staff report, sir? Okay, thank you. And so now I need a motion on the staff report. Councillor Conley, Councillor Pearson, all those in favor? Thank you. So now we're on to 6-4, folks. This is the proposed zoning bylaw amendment for property located at 46 to 52 James Street North, PED 16044, Ward 2. Again, I need to read this out. Members of the public, in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act, please be advised that if a person or public body does not make an oral submission at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Council of the City of Hamilton before Council makes a decision regarding the zoning bylaw amendment, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Council of the City of Hamilton to the Ontario Municipal Board, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the OMB unless, in the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. I'm just going to test the waters. Are there anyone here from the public, not the applicant, from the public wishing to speak to this item? Okay, thank you. So have a seat if you don't mind, please. So we'll hear from the staff, please. I believe it is Mr. Thomas.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the Planning Committee, and ladies and gentlemen. This is a zoning bylaw amendment for a property located at 46 to 52 James Street North, Hamilton, by Urban Solutions Planning and Development Consultants, on behalf of Leuna Local 837 Lister Property Corp. and the High Rise Group. The subject property is located north of the Lister block and is recognized as a through lot with frontages on both James Street North and Rebecca Street. The property is located east of Jackson Square. The property has been vacant since 2010 and was formerly occupied by a 4-story heritage building which was constructed in 1855 and 1856 by the prominent Canadian architect known as William Thomas. The subject property is currently under 2 zones. The downtown prime retail D2 zone applies to the portion of the site that extends eastward from James Street North. And the downtown mixed-use D3 zone applies to the portion of the property that extends southward from Rebecca Street. This is the, oops. Sorry. You can see the subject property on this aerial photo, and to the west is Jackson Square. The proposed rezoning is for the development of a 21-story mixed-use building that will provide commercial uses along the portion of the ground floor along James Street North. The building will be developed as a multiple dwelling for 146 dwelling units with an occupancy of up to 392 persons, and it will be geared to McMaster University students. Staff have also reviewed earlier considerations by the applicant for 155, 170, and 127 units based on various combinations of 2, 3, and 4 bedroom units. The building will reestablish the historic facade of the William Thomas building along James Street North, and it will provide a tower that will be developed above podiums on the 1st and 4th floors, which will have an east-west orientation. This is a view of the property. A proposed site plan. The building will have step backs for the tower above the 4th floor and above the 18th floor to allow for better integration of the building into this area by mostly older low to mid-rise buildings. Along Rebecca Street, the proposed building would be set back 15 meters from the street line and 24 meters for the tower portion. The setback will allow for a plaza area to be developed east of the entrance to the underground parking. And this area will also allow for outdoor seating and landscaped areas. The building will include an underground parking area that will accommodate 29 vehicles. Reduced parking is being requested in light of the proximity of the property to existing and future transit and bicycle routes. The ground floor will contain a lobby area, a bike parking area for 265 bicycles. Common areas will be developed as well on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th floors. The application was examined extensively in terms of planning policy. In particular, the property is under 2 designations in the Urban Hamilton official plan. In the downtown secondary plan. This includes the prime retail streets and downtown mixed use designations. The property is also under 2 development permit sub-areas, which apply and are known as the Lister Development Permit Sub-Area and the Rebecca Wilson Development Permit Sub-Area. The Urban Hamilton official plan policies, which are discussed in the report, have examined the proposal with respect to residential intensification, transportation, transit, density, urban design, and parking, and these are the predominant policy themes and inform the main issues that staff have examined. Urban design in particular is an important area of policy. The components of urban design include a building height, compatibility, view planes, and the integration with existing buildings. It was determined through sun shadow studies and pedestrian wind assessments that the proposed building would not negatively impact existing streetscapes along James Street North and Rebecca Street. The building does not generally interrupt views to important landmarks such as the escarpment, the Bayfront, or Gore Park. However, it was noted that the building would be prominent from certain vistas such as King and James at the entrance to Jackson Square, and at James and York Boulevard, and also from the escarpment. This is a recent elevation plan showing the 21-story building. To reduce some of the effects of the building's massing and height, design improvements have been introduced and were worked on collaboratively with both staff and the applicant. They include terracing, recessed bay along the central portion of the building, as well as articulation. With respect to additional building massing has also been added to the portion of the building along Rebecca Street, which would allow for a better fit with existing buildings. With respect to parking and transportation demand measures, it is recognized that there is a shortfall in parking with this application from what is required under bylaw 05200. The consideration of reduced parking has been based on the proximity of the proposal to transit facilities in the downtown and the provision of TDM facilities, which include a high amount of indoor bicycle storage facilities. Reduced parking considerations are generally consistent with the bylaw requirements for smaller units in bylaw 05200. A special provision of 0.66 spaces per unit for the units over 2 bedrooms would be consistent with car ownership citywide among apartment residents. A parking credit of 11 spaces is being provided for the former building that was removed in light of the restoration of the former heritage building facade. And the use of cash in lieu of parking is also being applied to the proposed shortfall of parking. The proposal conforms to the Urban Hamilton official plan policies with respect to density and residential intensification. The proposal also conforms to policies for, with respect to cultural heritage. The application was circulated to 377 property owners, and there were no letters received. Staff support the application because it is consistent with the PPS, it conforms to the growth plan, and it conforms to the policies of the Urban Hamilton official plan and the downtown secondary plan. As noted in the report, the proposal is considered to be positive to the city in terms of downtown redevelopment. It will support the city's transit and LRT initiatives. It will reestablish the historic character of James Street North through the restoration of the 4-story stone facade. In addition, staff support a building design which has been modified and improved to provide a better fit with existing development and a scheme for reduced parking. This is a photo showing the former William Thomas building. This is a view looking north from James Street North at the property. This is a view looking south from James Street North. This is a view looking north from King William Street. A view looking south from Rebecca Street. This is looking northwest from Rebecca Street. Looking west from Houston Street. And a view looking north from Jackson Square. You can see the Lister block in the background. This is a view looking north on James Street, just south of the Lister block. And this is a view looking south from Wilson Street and James Street North. The recommended zoning, which is provided in Appendix B, provides for a number of modified provisions which are required to address minimum and maximum building setbacks for James Street North for the heritage facade, for development above the facade, and for development above the 18th floor. Modifications to building setbacks along Rebecca Street are proposed to accommodate the proposed plaza and outdoor amenity areas and to maintain a greater setback for the building above the 4th story from the street. A maximum building height provision will allow for the maximum building height of the step back portion to be 21 stories or 67 meters instead of 15 stories. As discussed, the modified parking requirements take into account the downtown location, the proximity to transit and future LRT facilities, and TDM facilities. The proposed shortfall will most likely require cash in lieu of parking to allow for, to provide for approximately 22 parking spaces. And this will be then applied towards a future parking structure in the downtown. A special provision for maximum glazing is included in the zoning for fire safety purposes to require that the glazing is between 30 to 70%. And this is to ensure that there are proper building separations between abutting buildings such as the Lister block. In addition, other zoning provisions are included to address bicycle parking, barrier-free parking, minimum interior side yard setbacks, and minimum width of the ground floor facade to allow for flexibility in the design of the Rebecca Street portion of the building. The proposed development is subject to site plan approval, which will allow for a detailed review of developments such as zoning conformity, grading, stormwater management and servicing, landscaping, access, and other building design requirements. Therefore, staff support the application, subject to the zoning recommended in Appendix B. And if there are any questions, Madam Chair, I'd be pleased to try and answer them.
Thank you, Cam. Are there any questions for staff at this time? Councillor Collins.
I have a very quick one, and it's in regards to the downtown densities targets right now. I know we've been underperforming in that area, although we've seen tremendous growth, certainly in the downtown, but historically we haven't met the targets in the core. This will go a long way to meet those. How short are we today in that regard if maybe we use 213 as an example?
Cam?
Through you, Madam Chair, I don't know if I can answer that, but I will say that this application does have a large amount of density that will provide towards the downtown. So it's in the 800 range.
Councillor? Thank you. Any other questions? Can I have a motion, please, to receive Cam's presentation? Councillor Collins, Councillor Pearson, all those in favor. Thank you. And I believe Mantia is in the audience. Ignoring you now. It's easier.
Yes, please. Do you want me to just, do you have it ready on there? Thank you, Madam Chairman. Hello again. Thank you. Just give me one moment. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought they sent it to you.
Helps when that goes in.
Sorry, Madam Chairman. We're just gearing up here. I'll be brief, and basically, I think Mr. Thomas has basically summed up a great deal of what needs to be said today, but I just want to acknowledge a few people and also speak to the application quickly, and hopefully we can move forward. For the record, my name is Sergio Mantia from Urban Solutions, and I'm here on behalf of the High Rise Group and Local 837 Liuna Lister Property Corporation. Today with me is Mr. Ricardo Percy from Liuna and Mr. Sean Marr, also Mr. Di Pasquale, who's been part of the team from Stonehaven. Not with us is the architect, Richard from WGD Architects, and Megan Hobson, the cultural heritage planner we retained. Excuse me. First of all, Madam Chairman, I'd like to take this opportunity, which is, this is a very exciting project. As you're probably all aware in reading the report and hearing and speaking to your councillor and, of course, the Beasley Association, this is the final chapter of the redevelopment, per se, of the Lister Block area. Now, before I get into my presentation very quickly, I'd like to thank, in particular, a variety of people that worked hard on this. And I must add that this application took 6 months. So I stress 6 months, and I thank staff for that. Cam worked day and night on this, and I know he did a great job. We all worked diligently to try to get this moving, and I know how important it is for our downtown. Anita also, Joanna, of course, the names before me, Mr. Robichaud, Mr. Thorne, Councillor Farr, who took a very active role, and of course the Beasley neighborhood. And we thank them for this application. As Cam has indicated, the aerial is above me. It's located next to the Lister block. I think that probably puts everything in perspective. An L shape that has 2 frontages. Of course, the original facade we can all remember from years back, and I must add that the careful consideration was taken when the Lister block was rebuilt, and I understand through Mr. Marr and Mr. Percy that every piece has been labeled and they're going to try to put back as was at their best. Of course, it did have its time, and you could see just through the pictures that there was going to be a lot of hard work ahead of these gentlemen to put this building up accordingly. Existing open area that's shown the demolished area. Now, very quickly, Madam Chairman, originally there was a formal consultation on this application of 2013. That was for the original condominium, and that I just want to make sure that everyone's clear that that's not what's before us today. We are dealing with student residents that Kem has explained. In August, we brought forward an application for the revision, and before us, you can see the variety of dates and important sort of pinnacle points that brought us here today, in particularly, the design review panel, the modifications made to the massing in November, and of course, a report that's before you this morning. Now, I do want to bring out that this wasn't simply just let's put an application in and off to committee. There are probably even more between 1 and 9 here, or 10, where there was a variety of changes where we had a very willing staff and, of course, very willing developer who I must add participated at every meeting and participated with care and of course knowledge on what the ultimate design is before you. Now, before that, there was some considerations with the submission, and I'll show you that for the committee here. Sorry. Here before you is the original concept that was submitted by the architects, the high-res group in Liuna, clearly showing all sides or 4 sides of the elevations and including a full build-out of height. But with that came some discussions and various meetings that took place, and with the results of some serious changes, in our opinion, that resulted in some very interesting details in the plan and in the building itself. Now, it's hard to see this and describe it here before you, but there are some changes that dealt with within the elevator shaft and, of course, the stepping that is along Rebecca Street. So this has taken a lot of good energy and produced, I think, one of the most interesting buildings that downtown will come to see. Of course, we did our sun shadow reports, and being located on the south side of Rebecca, there is advantages of being situated there. And again, I can discuss these if committee wishes, but they are here and they were described within the report and, of course, within our presentation, submission to committee. Sorry, to staff, my apologies. Now, one thing that we, again, are very proud of, and we took a lot of time and energy putting forward this because, as mentioned in previous matters, consultation sometimes is difficult. So we are, meaning with the public, we are strong advocates of putting everything onto the web and to the internet so people can visit, comment. And with that before us, we had about 508 visitors to our website, of which all the noted reports before you were available for discussions. And again, the statistics speak for themselves. And I believe that, I hope that the Beasley Association is as happy as we are. Again, Madam Chairman, and basically in sum, this is a 21-story, 146 units with approximately short of 388 students or student beds. And of course, one key component is the retail element that will be along James, and of course, that's the old William Thomas building. The parking is, as indicated by Kim, is within this detail, and that's self-explanatory. Again, if there's any questions, I'll be at the discretion of the committee. Again, this is a very important zoning application, and it is in keeping with the spirit of what we're trying to achieve in the lower city. And having 3 university students, I think I know that they have a whole lot more disposable income than most people, so it's all good. It's all good. I think 8 months out of the year, they'll just be calling Dad and Mom for another check to spend in our downtown, I hope. In conclusion, Madam Chairman, this proposal increases the number of people living downtown. It's going to help restaurants, it's going to help cafes, it's going to help a lot of things, and we should be very proud that these developers have brought forth such an idea. The proposal will serve as a catalyst for new economic development, as noted, within the downtown, and again, I think we can all applaud this. Again, it's a vacant site. It is a brownfield. It is going to be cleaned up, and I know Mr. DePasquale has been working diligently with staff for the various years, so he should be noted for that. One thing that Councillor Collins, I wish to bring forth, was always asks, so what's going on with the taxes once we do this? Well, with the taxes, we go from about $13,000 to about $450,000 a year. That's excluding the economic injection that these students will bring forward. And of course, there's the cash in lieu of parking that our client, I must add, is the pioneer. And I would stress they are the pioneer of adding monies into a pool that hopefully will see this established parking lot downtown, and I applaud them, and I'm very happy to be associated with this because we do need more parking, and I know Mr. Thorne is actively pursuing this, and I'm sure he'll be bringing forward a positive report and soon enough with some site or particular site where this $300,000 can be applied. Madam Chairman, I think that's it. There's probably a few other things, but again, I want to thank Cam, who really worked hard on this. I can't stress. I was getting emails at late at night and on the weekends and et cetera. So Cam, thank you very much for that, and I appreciated all your hard work. And Madam Chairman, any questions?
I do have a list. Councillor Green.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and certainly through you, if you just go back to the engagement slide, looks like lots of community engagement there, done well. When a project is a winnable project like this one, I can see the benefit of that enhanced community engagement.
This one here?
No, that's on the studies. You had a list of all the different.
No, this is it. Sorry.
I thought maybe there's a different slide, but at any rate, the point being that it certainly helps when you're engaged in the community. Just a question through you, Madam Chair, with regards to the market. If you could just share in your market analysis the need and perhaps highlight the need for adequate student housing and how this might impact some of the pressures that we're seeing in Westdale with maybe perhaps some of the unregulated or inadequate situations students sometimes find themselves.
Madam Chairman, I'm not an expert in that particular area. Maybe we can, and I don't mean to disrespect the question. I know that the objective is that there is a strong understanding and need by our clients. They're just not hypothetically coming up. Maybe Mr. Marr could step down if he had any comments on that. Otherwise, I was involved in the old Canadian Student Blind redevelopment, where now it's I think it's a 12-story. Similar type of building, and it's taken off. I mean, that project there was the first one off the benchmark, and knowing the client and of course working for him, it's constantly full, and it adds a very important element. And this is back to Councillor McCaddy's days, is that we were trying to revitalize the areas of Westdale where we brought in a facility and trying to rejuvenate the core of Westdale, where you have unfortunately some rundown units. With regards to this in relation to the Beasley neighborhood, I don't know how much of it is actually student geared, but
it was Westdale. But if perhaps, Madam Chair, I can answer it or ask the question in a different way. It seems like a lot of the parking requirement restrictions, at least in my own rationale, make sense for McMaster, given that they're all issued bus passes, they're all transit oriented as students. And understanding that this is a substantial development, I'm all for density downtown, as I've expressed previously. I guess my question is, in the event that you don't fill it with students, it goes back to just market units, what parking considerations have you taken into account for that scenario? Should it not garner the type of student interest that you're currently seeking?
Sergio?
Madam Chairman, a very good question. Let's take a step back and talk about the zoning in particular and how these units are actually zoned and actually laid out. To basically convert this into a conventional condo or apartment would require some amendments, in my opinion, to the bylaw. With regards to the parking, very good question. We know through our studies and other applications, of course we did our parking study, that the demand for parking within such a facility for students, it's minimal. And of course, we're also trying to encourage, and I don't have to explain that to this committee, LRT, public transit, etc. So I think with regards to the additional dollars that our client is putting in for the ultimate parking lot up the street, I think that might be our answer if in case you're questioning, do we need more parking? Yes, the restricted amount of parking here falls within the equation, falls within the business plan, and of course falls within students that mostly take public transit.
I guess yeah, and so that satisfies it, Madam Chair. Where I was trying to go with it, I was checking to see if there was a deep understanding of the student rental market. Clearly there is to invest this type of money in a project of this size. But I also wanted to know what was the other considerations should that not be the case. I mean, I'm satisfied with the project, and I'm not for tying on one-to-one parking in this type of transit corridor, so I can support that completely. I just wondered what the other scenarios might play out should they not garner the type of interest. I personally feel, my own intuition is that this will be sold out relatively quickly, provided it has some kind of reasonable market application, student housing, which I'm sure they've all considered. So those are all my questions for now, and I appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the speaker? Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Sergio, for the presentation.
Thank you, Councillor.
I'm going to ask just a blunt question. What is the cost of this whole development once it comes to fruition?
I'm going to take a guess, but I'd rather $45 million.
Thank you, and that's a tremendous investment in the downtown core, and also something that will complement the Lister that the proponents here were also involved in. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, may I have a motion, please, to receive the presentation? Councillor Green, Councillor Conley. All those in favor? Thank you. I now invite the members of the public wishing to speak to this issue to the podium. And again, for this file, please sign in and introduce yourself for the public record.
Twice today, yes. It's been a year and I do twice in a day. Joey Coleman, resident Ward 2. Again, I must emphasize that I stepped off the Beasley Neighborhood Association in December. I speak solely as a resident. Firstly, I want to thank the developers for the microsite that was noted. It was phenomenal to be able to get all the documents. I know many of my fellow residents in Beasley, again, speaking not as the association, as an individual, appreciated being able to get all the information. It sparked a great deal of conversation. I'm up here speaking because this is an area where I have some expertise, not as a planner, but as a journalist. I used to cover higher education for Maclean's and the Globe and Mail. I travel widely, seeing university towns across the United States, Canada, and a couple overseas. I agree with the developer. There's a huge opportunity here. There's a huge market for student housing. This is a win for the city, because if the students are moving into this building, it helps alleviate a lot of pressure on our rental market downtown, because we've had a lot of students shifting downtown for quality of life, which is great because our downtown is getting better. So this is a win-win. The fact that money's going into the parking reserve is a huge win, I believe, because the parking structure is needed downtown. We have too much surface parking downtown. So, but what I want to speak to further is how we manage student housing. So this building is going to fall under the Residential Tenancies Act, has presently proposed. It's not with the university, but they're going to probably create a market downtown. I think they're going to be over capacity, where the university, McMaster's been looking at where do they build their next residence. They're out of land on their campus out in West Hamilton. There's lots of parking lots downtown. We've been trying to incentivize them downtown to locate. And when we get to that point, this building looks like it's going to be 12-month leases fully full. But when we start dealing with 8-month leases, we have a huge opportunity to fulfill one of our other challenges, which is the lack of hotel rooms in the summer. So if we get into a situation where the university comes downtown for residents, it's something that I think we need to consider is how do we mix the student residence and hotel component, which is common for a lot of universities in urban cores across North America. I had the opportunity to travel a lot for conferences in the summer, and something that I noted where a lot of these cities lack the hotel rooms year-round for conferences, but during the summer when the downtown universities emptied out and became conference centers, hotels, that was how those cities were able to draw conventions. So I just wanted to put that forth. Again, I want to put on the record very clearly complimenting the developer on their public engagement, their microsite, on the development, the fact that they've changed the renderings here and the design of the building in reflection of design review panel. 6-month process, everything was checked off. I think this is actually a case study in how we do downtown development, how we do downtown community consultation. A year ago, the Beasley Neighborhood Association stood in front of you very disappointed in a development further north on James Street, which was the exact opposite in terms of public consultation. It got X from residents of Beasley on every mark. This got checks. This is what we want to see more of. Kudos to the developer.
Thank you. Any questions for the presenter? Councillor Green.
I do apologize. Just as a point of clarity, and perhaps Mr. Coleman, you weren't in attendance of that meeting, but I remember both meetings on the question that you brought forward, and Beasley was present. And at that time, I remember them going on the public record. There was a female who delegated to say that, in fact, she was working with the developers in consultation. So I just wanted to put that there. Perhaps you can go to the live stream and check it out. But I know for a fact that they were working with the developers on that. That's why I supported it, because the neighborhood association came before us and supported it. So I just wanted to make that point of clarity so that it's not going down in the record books today as being opposed by Beasley, because it wasn't.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
If I can respond to that, Beasley's position was to support the staff position at the time, and council chose to go with a different one.
Okay, so no, not open for debate. We're talking about a totally different application. All those in favor for Councillor Green, Councillor Partridge? All those in favor? Thank you. I need to say this 3 times. Is there anyone here from the public who wishes to speak to 4652 James Street North? Going once? Anyone here? Going twice? 3 times. Thank you. Councillor Collins and Councillor Conley to close the public meeting. All those in favor? Thank you. And I need a motion regarding the staff report, please.
Yep.
Councillor Collins.
Can I say something on it as well?
Yeah, all right.
Thank you.
Just move to.
I know Councillor Farr's not here today, and it's unfortunate because I know that, as was mentioned through Mr. Manchia's presentation, he's worked very hard to facilitate this development here, and it's not often that we see something of this magnitude in front of us that really is the poster child for intensification in the city. I mean, it's happening in the place that we want, right in the center of the city. It's heritage, in part, it's a heritage building. It's a brownfield site, as Mr. Manchia mentioned, and it's generating tremendous new revenues for the city. So when you take all that into account, if we could see, half a dozen to a dozen of these a year, our tax dilemma that we have and we regularly deal with, not just at committee but through the budget process, would be certainly a lot easier to deal with. So I do want to thank Councillor Farr, because I know that he's worked long and hard on this. There have been dozens of meetings that I'm aware of with our staff with the applicant. It just continues to do really good things in our community. Thank them for making a very strategic investment And as was mentioned earlier and with other applications, the fact we have students now living in these numbers downtown, think of what Mac students do for Westdale, think of what Mohawk students do for the West Mountain, and certainly think of what Columbian College students do for the downtown currently. The fact that we will have more people living in the center of the city, spending their dollars after all of us who work here at City Hall go home at the end of the day, will enhance, I think, the commercial activity in the core and just continue to do good things for the city. And I asked the question earlier to staff in terms of what's going on with our intensification numbers, because as I've complained about at committee, we continue to see the vast majority of our growth in the suburban areas and on the fringes and in the greenfield. And so to see something like this in front of us that accomplishes so many things on so many levels is refreshing to see. And a lot of people made that happen. And I think I would like to thank our staff as well, because I know Mr. Thorne and others have worked very hard to find a compromise. You know, and we don't have a lineup of people here opposing it, which is well. So thanks to everyone who made this happen. It's terrific to see, and I would be proud to move it at the appropriate time.
Thank you. I'll come back to you. Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I certainly concur with the previous speaker. You know, being elected since 2003, one of the major things when I first got on Hamilton Council was we need people back downtown, and it's been said for years and years and years. It's coming. It's been a consistently good progress, but I think this will be a huge influx of opportunity and benefits to the downtown coming forward, not only because of student housing, but also because it will allow for the reattachment of heritage features, and I'll be thrilled to take that to the Heritage Committee, of the former the William Thomas building at the front as the facade. It will also fill in the missing tooth, as I call them. When you have buildings down, you've got a missing tooth. It will fill that space back in. And, you know, it's all good things. We've got to remember the, you know, we have the GO station coming, or the GO station now at James Street North. So it's a win-win for the, and this is what we knew that would happen as we get all these key elements coming into the areas. And certainly I agree with Councillor Collins, as he mentioned, Leuna has done an awful lot. They did the Lister block. They have a huge development that they did the zoning for in Ward 10. They've done a tremendous amount of work throughout the city. And we can only see more great things coming as far as West Harbour and the waterfront. So I certainly commend. And lastly, and most importantly, Councillor Farr, who, you know, unfortunately is not here today. I know he would be very proud to be here to speak of this. But he's done a tremendous amount of work consulting with the community, with the applicants, the agents, etc., in making sure this moves forward, and also keeping, as far as myself, he's kept me apprised of what the intentions were there, and certainly very supportive all along the process. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm coming back to, seeing no other speakers, coming back to Councillor Collins for a motion. And Councillor Collins moves it, seconded by Councillor Green. All those in favor? Thank you. So now we're on to 7.1. This is the amendment to the business licensing bylaw 07-170 to license payday loans business PED 16039 citywide. Wait for the herd of turtles to leave. Hang on. Members of committee, we're now on public notices. May I first have a motion to receive the written comments, and I apologize ahead of time to Allison. Item 7.1I from the Beasley Neighborhood Association. Councillor Green, Councillor Conley, all those, we don't have quorum. Councillor Conley, all those in favor? Thank you. And just for everyone's information, we're very short on quorum, so it's given the lunch hours and nature calls, we can hear everything that's happening in the Councillors Lounge. So you may not see us sitting here, but we are in the other room listening. So sorry. Thank you, Councillor Collins. So before we hear from Mr. Cooper, are there any questions for staff regarding the report? Councillor Green.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I know this is you know, really historic, and we're the first municipality to go in this direction. So I did want to allow Mr. Leanhurst the opportunity, with him and his staff, special operations staff, to go ahead and just comment high level on the executive summary and why we got to this point in time with the recommendations that are before us today.
Good morning, Ken.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of Council. We're recommending the licensing of payday loans To ensure consumer protection. The Municipal Act allows municipalities the authority to license and impose restrictions on business for public safety as well as consumer protection. Unfortunately, it does not allow us for the restriction of zoning, the number of businesses, or the ability to set interest rates, in particular on payday loans. This licensing of payday loans will give the city the authority to ensure businesses are operating within the guidelines as stipulated by the regulations. These new licensing schedules, or this new licensing schedule, will ensure payday loans must display debt reduction information and interest rates. And I did bring a couple of the posters, but they are actually in your report to show you what the posters are as demanded by the legislation if it's so passed. As well, for every loan that is given out at one of these locations, it will be part of the regulations that they will be issued a pamphlet. And in this pamphlet talks about what is credit counseling and debt management, as well as numbers of support that someone can reach out to. I know I had an opportunity to work with Tom Cooper in relation to developing this, and Tom and I actually did some secret shopping at a couple of these locations and found out that the size of the posters that the province actually puts in are although they're large, they do not really speak to the point of debt counseling. And we did ask for support in getting out of debt, and were referred that that's not their responsibility. And so we saw this as an opportunity to bring forward a piece in the bylaw that would support a person caught in the cycle of debt and get them support that they need, and hence the recommendation to come forward to license.
Thank you, Councillor.
I know that Hamilton was, again, at the forefront of this conversation, going back to the direction from Councillor Marula as it related to the cashing in of gift certificates. That kind of preempted a very vigorous conversation with the Boys and Girls Club. We hosted two community input opportunities. If you could just for a moment, through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Leanhurst and staff, comment on our ongoing dialogue with the province and how the Municipal Act, how we're basically doing whatever we can within the powers within the Municipal Act.
Ken?
Through you, Madam Chair, that is correct. We have an ongoing dialogue with Mr. Frank Denton from the Ministry of Consumer Services, and they are very much in support of what we're doing at the municipal level. Our hands are tied in relation to what restrictions we can put into a business licensing class. However, the province is diligently working on changing the legislation, in particular being driven by the direction of this council to make some changes in relation to interest rates, as well as giving an alternative for other people to go forward to find places to get money and not be hit at such a significant interest rate.
Councillor?
And in other conversations, I know it came up that there was talk about radial separation. If you could just maybe comment on why we weren't able to use that tool as it pertained to the Municipal Act, just so that the public understands that we've done everything we can as a municipality in this regard.
Through you, Madam Chair, that is correct. The Municipal Act does not give us the authority under this business licensing category to do separations or set interest rates. It is restricted to facilities such as adult entertainment. That's the only where the Municipal Act allows us to do separation and specific. However, those comments were given to the provincial government to consider as they make amendments to the Municipal Act.
Councillor?
And I do think that this is, so it is your opinion that we're doing everything we can within the Municipal Act, within our powers on this particular case, just so that we're 100% clear. We've left no stone unturned.
Ken?
Through you, Madam Chair, that is correct. We are somewhat limited because payday loans are also licensed already by the province, and we're moving forward with a licensing category for the municipality, but our hands are somewhat tied in what restrictions we can make. The fact that we're licensing them gives us the authority to ensure that they're operating with integrity and honesty, and we also have the ability to take a person or the business back to the tribunal. But the restrictions of education through these posters and these pamphlets, I think, goes a long way in educating the users of these facilities, that there are alternatives or there's assistance out there to get them out of debt.
Councillor?
And lastly, through you, Madam Chair, Ken, I know you're a very intelligent man, but you have had staff working on this file. If you could just take a moment and introduce the staff that you've had working on this file to kind of help us get to where we're at.
Ken?
Yes, I want to introduce our lawyer, Monica. Monica is in charge of rewriting our business bylaw. However, on this case, Monica and I have worked on it, but I've been somewhat passionate on this one myself and have taken this on personally to draft the bylaw, as well as the assistance from our legal, Lisa Pasternak.
Thank you, Councillor.
I seem to remember Al Fletcher being at a meeting or two way back in the day as well. So through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Leanhertz, to Monica, to Al, if you're out there watching somewhere, I can't thank you enough for drafting this as the first step towards regulating this industry. Madam Chair, in these recommendations, there's a very clear rationale for why we want to go in this direction. I do have, however, a amendment, something I want to add that is before you. I've printed it out. There's one for Councillor Jackson. I know he likes these printed copies as well for his information.
As do I. I'll come back to you for your amendment. Any other questions for staff at this time? Seeing none, may I have a motion? Oh, sorry, Councillor Conley.
Mostly a comment, but first of all, I'd like to thank Matt Green, Councillor Matt Green, for bringing this up. I think it was one of the first issues he brought up after he was elected, and I was very impressed by his wanting to do something for the unfortunate. I really hope that the provincial government takes this recommendation seriously and puts more teeth into the act and see if we can control this a lot more than we are. It's a really good start to something that I think we can build on through the provincial government, and I think they're looking at this very seriously. And I hope that we send our recommendation or our motion when it's passed or our bylaw to every major city in Ontario, maybe even Canada, so they know what we're doing and they can implement the same thing that we are implementing. Thank you, Councillor Green, for your initiative.
So maybe a friendly suggestion to add that as another part, that AMO and FCM. Thank you. Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and certainly I concur. Councillor Green, thank you so much for bringing this forward. I had complaints or issues in my ward, but I do have payday facilities in Ward 10. But it is good news. As a matter of fact, it was just in the Spectator, I think it was on 12th, Friday, that Minister Sousa has made some changes with regards to the Credit Unions and Banks Act, or Caisse Populaires Act, where they are actually allowing credit unions now to offer the same services that these payday loan facilities have been doing, which is a benefit because credit unions come under much more stringent controls and regulations. Recognize that many communities with payday loans, predatory financing products are an issue. So this is a great initiative forward. We can certainly let other communities know what's being done here, and really appreciative that the province has also been listening and hearing that, you know, we need to address this. Thank you.
Thank you. And at this time, I just want to recognize that Councillor Tom Jackson has joined this committee for today. And now I would like to call on Tom Cooper from the Hamilton Roundtable for Poverty Reduction to the podium for his delegation. And I suspect you're going to be preaching to the choir here. That would be not a bad thing.
But I do have show and tell, so
And Mr. Cooper tried to get this started at the beginning of the meeting, and I suggested he waited till he came down.
Thank you very much. And while this is being set up, if I could just echo what's already been said, and certainly...
Microphone, please.
Sorry.
Thank you, through the chair.
If I can just echo what's already been said in this chamber, and certainly thank Councillor Green for his outstanding leadership on this file. We are certainly moving ahead in this community, a leader in the province, and I think nationally as well, in recognizing really the predatory nature of this industry. And furthermore, to thank Ken and Kelly and the entire staff who've worked on these very strong recommendations. And I think they will make a difference in the lives of people who potentially may use these services in the months to come. Maybe I'll just start out by a very brief overview of the payday loan industry in our community. As many of you will know, payday loan outlets are situated in many parts of our community.
That's it. Thank you.
Right here.
And start from slide 1.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. We know they're short-term loans, usually 2 weeks long, and they often don't include credit checks, unlike traditional financial institutions. Outlets are located typically in lower-income neighborhoods or on the fringes of lower-income neighborhoods, and we know here in Hamilton, particularly in the lower city, they have become more and more really institutionalized as we've seen bank branches close up and move out of neighborhoods. And as a result, we've seen these payday loan outlets move in and really what we're calling them is predatory, because that's really what they are. In about a week's time, my colleague Sarah Mayo from Hamilton Social Planning and Research Council is here. Social Planning and Research Council will be releasing a report in the next little while looking at the proliferation of payday loan outlets in our community over the last 20 years, and it really is an eye-opening experience. We know this industry really does prey on those who are working poor and those who are fixed income. So it's a phenomena really of the modern age, where we have people working trying to cobble together several part-time jobs, not working full-time hours, and they run into an emergency financial situation and need a little bit of help. So this is just a map of just some of the payday loan outlets just within 1 square kilometer of City Hall here, and you will see there are a number of them in the downtown area, and they've been growing. So predatory lending is any lending practices that imposes unfair or abusive loan terms on a borrower. It is also a practice that convinces a borrower to accept terms through coercive, exploitive, or unscrupulous actions for a loan that a borrower maybe doesn't need, doesn't want, or quite possibly can't afford. And I think that last point is something that we've seen more and more of in this community and across the province. These loans are simply unaffordable, and I said in The Spectator this morning, this is really profiteering on those who can least afford it in our community. They use flashy gimmicks and slick advertising campaigns to coax customers to take out loans. So mascots and certainly making it sound as though these are very reasonable loans. Get $100 for your first loan for $1. Well, that seems great, except it's a way of really pulling you in to the payday loan cycle. They will, as I said, they seem reasonable. This one's from Cash Money, a $300 loan for $20. These are common advertisements we'll see around town. And even during holiday season or Halloween here, we'll have payday loan representatives out on King Street, giving away candy and treats. But really the trick is that they want to lure customers in. We know it's a huge price to pay, though. This graph was put together by Laura Katari at our roundtable. It really shows the difference between the interest rates on a credit card, which for a $300 loan would be $63. The annual rate for a payday loan would be $1,638. And again, just going back to these slick advertising gimmicks that they use, this is one that Cash For You just used this past Christmas season. And if you can't see it, I'll read it. The poster says 4 video games, 3 talking dolls, 2 mountain bikes, and a pony, because they deserve it. you know, they're really guilting parents into trying to take out these loans that aren't affordable. And with that in mind, I'd like to ask my colleague, Jody Dean, who's a member of our roundtable and a member of Speak Now Hamilton, who you've heard some of the members of Speak Now speak in this chamber before. She has some experience she'd like to share with you about payday loans.
Good morning. Thank you for having me today. Today, I'm here to talk to you about my personal experiences. I want to preface it by saying that I have a lot of people in my community who have used the payday loans, and there's a lot of stories I could give you, but today I'm going to go on a couple personal ones that are really close to me. First off, recently, actually a year ago Christmas, I'd like to tell you I'm a low-income single mom with 2 children with special needs, 3 children in total, and a year ago Christmas, my child support didn't come through. So I turned to my family to help with things like, you know, the major things that you need in life is like a roof over your head and food on the table. But I still didn't have anything for Christmas for my children. So everybody is skint. It's Christmas time. I made the choice to get a payday loan. The payday loan was for $300. It wasn't like it was a gigantic amount of money. But I didn't read the small print on the loan. And when the first payment came out, it came out because it was borrowed on my child tax credit. The night before my child tax credit was due, I went to the grocery store, went to use my debit card, and it was declined. When I looked at my account, they take the payment out the night before. They factor in, as I found out later, they factor in a $5 overdraft charge because they know they're going to put you into overdraft. And the money that I thought was there for bread and milk was not. I called them, found out this is how they work, this is what they did. They also took out an interest-only payment, because that's the fine print I didn't read, was that as long as you didn't disagree, it was interest every month. Well, on the $300 loan, the $100 interest was much easier to do. It has taken me a year plus to pay back the loan. I have paid over $1,500 in interest on my $300 loan. That's very, very frustrating. If there was another choice, if I had a way of paying it back without the structure that they were giving me, it would have been much easier, paid off a long time ago, and I would have saved so much money because, you know, I didn't think about, at that time, the $300 becoming $1,800, $1,900 in a year. So that is the one story that I wanted to talk to you about. Now, if I had to do it again, would I have done it? Well, yeah, I have an 8-year-old daughter. She doesn't understand that Santa can't afford gifts. She's 8 years old. So would I do it again? Yes. If there was an alternative to that, absolutely, I would take the alternative. My second story is one that kind of infuriates me even more. My sister was adopted into our family as an infant. She has fetal alcohol syndrome. She has been on ODSP since she was 18. She came to me a few years back, just basically stating that she got herself into some trouble with some payday loans. It wasn't a little bit of trouble, it was a lot of trouble. Because when she couldn't pay back the first payday loan, she went somewhere else to help her. So in the end, she had thousands of dollars accumulated on payday loans. And of course, they didn't offer us anything at that time. So being that she had fetal alcohol syndrome, it wouldn't have mattered what you did. She didn't understand what she was getting into. So I did some research myself, and I contacted some agencies, and I was able to get her in to do a consumer proposal. It took 3 years to pay off her debt, but she paid it off. A few months back, she let it slip that she again took out a payday loan. I was, of course, infuriated with her, but I also understand that she really doesn't understand the outcome of that. But I just wanted to share with you, her income per month is $1,350. They allowed her to loan $780. Okay? Her payment back each month is $907 that she has to pay in total. So when she pays that back, She has no money to live on. She can't pay her rent. She is forced to reloan. There is no choice. I have, at this point, no idea how we're going to fix that situation for her. We're still looking into it because I'm not sure a consumer proposal will work for that lower amount of income or lower amount of debt. But I'm telling you, it is one thing that I really feel strongly that something needs to be done. They preyed on her. It was easy. Did she need $780? Probably not. Did they say, you're able to get $780? Yes. Did she take it? Yeah. I really hope that my stories give you a little bit of insight. I'm sure you guys, by the sounds of it, are all on board with it anyway. But just to understand that the stricter regulations and some alternatives to payday loans for when you do have an emergency would be really, really, really welcome to those of us who are out there and find ourselves that we have to use them.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I have a couple of people who would like to ask you a question. Councillor Green and then Councillor Pearson.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and through you to Ms. Dean, I again want to thank you for the courage that you've had to come before us today, and I'm sure and it hasn't been easy. But I do want you to know that you know we're already working on those alternatives with some of our local financial institutions. Tom's a part of that conversation. We're actively looking at alternatives. But if you could, you know, if you can share with us maybe one, if you could do one thing like today to change this, what would you do?
That is a difficult question because overall it would be to stop it completely. But then I know that there are circumstances for emergencies where do you turn? Like I mean, I wish that they weren't able to loan to people who are on such low incomes, fixed incomes like ODSP and OW. But then when they find themselves in a situation that they have nowhere to turn, what do you do? So I guess reality is to put something out there that's geared to these people that can help them on a short term and make it payable back in a way that they can actually move forward in life and not get stuck in the cycle.
Thank you, Councillor.
Madam Chair, through you to Ms. Dean, so I have a list before me of almost 10 recommendations that are very prescriptive policy recommendations that have taken into account the work that Tom, yourself, and other countless people, Acorn Canada, all the people who are working on this file across the country. I'm going to go ahead and add your recommendation to this in terms of what I heard around ODSP and Ontario Works. It's supposed to be illegal to do that, and they're doing it anyways. And so, so I'd like to add that for you coming down here today. I'd like to add that in here based on that recommendation. So I appreciate that. Just know that the work that you're doing with the roundtable, it's making a difference, and it doesn't happen as fast as we want it to, but it's going to happen. So thank you so much for your courage.
Thank you.
Here, here. Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Dana, well, and certainly appreciate this. It's an eye-opener, and I think if more people had come forward in the past, we certainly would have been. Councillor, I do want to ask, and I will ask the question then, do you feel that we obviously are going in the right direction with the credit unions, with the province allowing the credit unions to board and provide the same, better, but similar service?
Absolutely, it's the right direction. I guess my only question would be, being it is a credit union, are they going to have the same rules on borrowing? So is it going to be credit checks? Because when you look back, for my circumstances, it's not that I have bad credit, it's that I have no credit. My income is support. I'm not on assistance. So I'm sort of caught between a rock and a hard place as far as actual credit goes. I'd like to see that it would be open to everybody, not just people with adequate credit.
Appreciate
Thank you,
that.
Councillor.
And that was going to be my next question, not to put you on the spot, but I certainly would hope going forward, appreciate your candidness today. And the opportunity maybe going forward is that if you had an opportunity to use the credit union in the future, the need there and what their service is like and how their program works, and either through you yourself or Tom from the roundtable, I think it would be very appropriate to have that information come back to us so we know exactly how some improvements are making it better for the vulnerable in our. I would like to add that be an opportunity coming back in the future at some time. Not so much Ms. Dana maybe, but always a pleasure, but also Tom, as to how things are working out better as far as credit unions and the controls and the services they will provide.
I think Tom would like to respond, please.
Yeah, if I may jump in very briefly. In Vancouver, the Van City Credit Union has a program up and running now. It's called Fair and Fast Loan Program, and I believe there probably is a small credit check involved, but certainly the interest rates are much, much lower. They're 10 times lower than what we would see in a traditional payday loan type loan. And as Councillor Green has mentioned, there are ongoing conversations here locally with First Ontario, with Momentum, with other smaller credit unions to see if we can have a transferable sort of program brought here. And I think with the new provincial announcement on Friday, that will certainly make that easier. But it's definitely an issue that goes beyond the scope of needing quick cash as well. The reason the predatory lending industry exists is because we are living in a deeply inequitable society, and we really do need living wages. We need to ensure there's affordable housing available for families. We need to ensure there's affordable public transportation. If those priorities were put front and center as well, we would see the need for these sorts of the payday loan industry dry up. In Quebec, the provincial government has regulated them much more strictly than our province has. In the United States, in Arizona, voters actually voted to ban the payday loan industry in 2008, and so that state doesn't have these sorts of services. So I think there are creative solutions out there, and I'm looking forward to working with Councillor Green and others in the community to really move some of those forward.
Thank you. Councillor Pearson, you still have the floor. Thank you. Thank you, Tom, and thank you so much for sharing your stories. It was really impactful. And I need a motion, please, to receive the delegation. Councillor Green, Councillor Connolly, all those in favour. Thank you. Now, I need to read this out. Are there any other members of the public wishing to address this issue? One. Anyone else wanting to address this issue? Going twice, third time. Thank you very much. Just want to make sure. So now I need a motion on the report. I'm coming back to Councillor Green. You have a couple of amendments that you want to do. I was trying to keep track, so let's see if we captured them all. Councillor Green.
I do have the amendments there before you. I would ask for your indulgence that I read them out so members of the public can hear the direction that I'm going in.
If I may, the first recommendation is that this is be tagged on to the ABC.
Sure.
Okay,
yes.
So that a $750 annual licensing fee for administration, materials, inspections, and enforcement be approved and added to the user fees and charges bylaw. B, that an additional 0.25 FTE to enforce and administer the payday loan business license to be approved based on 100% cost recovery and with no additional impact to the tax levy. You are now going to speak to C.
Correct.
Thank you.
C is before you. A copy's been made based on really extensive research on this, with consideration of the fact that the ministry is now opening up this act. So I'll make this statement and then speak to it, if I may, seconded by Councillor Partridge.
Thank you.
That the mayor correspond with the Honourable David Orazietti, Minister of Government and Consumer Services, formally requesting that the province, A, make it a criminal offence to charge more than 30% interest per annum, B, make loan flipping and excessive refinancing illegal and require a signature of the borrower on all changes to the terms of the loan, C, institute interest and financing fee caps, D, institute government-mandated registrations for all loans and require all companies that provide loans and financing in Canada to register with the government, E, to make it easier to report predatory lenders through a formal complaint process, F, to restrict how consumers can use payday loans through a transaction tracking system, G, require payday lenders to take into account the borrower's ability to repay by limiting the amount lent to a portion of their net income, H, to lower the cost of defaulting on a loan by lowering the maximum default charge and by setting a total monthly default cost, I, by applying debt collection rules to the purchasers of overdue debts. There's a subsection of that denotes that currently Ontario's debt collection protection rules focus on collection agencies rather than the owners of the debt, which are often third and sometimes fourth party. And J, as we've heard here today, that the Minister of Social Services, the Honourable Helena Janczek, implement a livable social assistance rate and restrictions be made on OW and ODSP usages of these predatory loan products. D is the other amendment, which would include these be sent out to all municipalities in Ontario, AMO, and FCM. Madam Chair, this is an extensive, prescriptive recommendation to the province, acknowledging that the Payday Loans Act is open and the Provincial Minister of Government and Consumer Services. Madam Chair, prior to this Payday Loans Act coming into place, this industry would have been considered usury and would have been considered extortion by our criminal code. By allowing this industry in our province and target specifically people living on fixed incomes, as in pensions, OW and ODSP, we are, as identified today, allowing these people to continue to profit off our most vulnerable populations. Staff, as you've heard today through the Maynard and his team, have put forward what I hope to be a start across municipalities to this conversation provincially and of course across the country. Madam Deputy Chair, this is a nationwide problem, but particular to Ontario, we do have currently some of the most regressive policies on this particular topic. Particularly, there are 4 features in order for us to protect vulnerable indebted consumers that from province to province, Ontario continues to fall behind on. They are notably the maximum rent. As you've heard today from the delegation, very clearly, once people go down this path, there is no choice but to continue to borrow against their debt. Places like Manitoba have a 30% net income cutoff for the maximum amount that they're allowed to borrow. Per 100 vary. Ontario has high costs. The default fees vary. We have some of the highest default fees, $50 compared to Manitoba's 20. And then most importantly, as I think most shockingly and egregiously as pointed out here, is the maximum interest on arrears. These short-term loans trigger usury, extortion, and economic violence on people when you get into $1,638 on a $300 loan, 546% interest. How this has been allowed to flourish and continue in our province is to our enforcement. I do respect that we have gone to as far as we can within the letter of the Municipal Act to begin this conversation. I also acknowledge that this motion is by no means a cure-all, nor is this industry the sole cause of the poverty that's in our province. It is an effect of the poverty that's in our province as identified by the legislated poverty of our current social assistance in OW. So, Madam Chair, if I sound pretty passionate about this, it's because I am. I've seen it firsthand. I have had family who have dealt with this. We've heard the stories. It is a human experience that people are dealing with here in Hamilton, and so I really appreciate council and appreciate staff for the work that they've done on this. But I respectfully submit that this amendment, this very prescriptive list of policy interventions as identified by the initial provincial-wide review and the Association of Community Organizations for Reform Now, be considered and set forward. Those are my comments, and I'm certainly happy to hear any around the table. Thank you.
Thank you. The motion set before you. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Partridge.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm honored actually to second this motion, this amendment. The only thing I would add as a friendly amendment would be to add the large mayor's caucus onto your list, because I think it's really important that we send the message loud and clear from the City of Hamilton to the other large cities in Ontario, just how important this is that we get a handle on it. And, you know, once again, we're going to be leading the way on And I thank Councillor Green for his homework on this, and also for continuing since I think the day after you were elected. We've had many conversations about this, and to continue pounding the table on it. Ms. Dean, your presentation was very effective. I want to thank you so much for coming down here, for your bravery, for your courage. And, you really brought it home just how predatory these associations are, and it's just wrong. It gives people false hope, and that doesn't help. False hope that just lasts for a few days or a week before you end up getting into significant trouble. And, I look at Waterdown, all the development going on up there. We don't have a payday loan store opened up as of yet, but I worry about my community. I worry about all areas of this city, and it has to stop. I want to thank the province for bringing the new guidelines out that is enabling the credit unions to play, hopefully, a role in the solution for this blight on our community. I thank staff very much for your hard work on this. And when I asked Councillor Green if our legal department had vetted the list that he was putting forward, and he showed me the depth of the homework that he had done on this. And I'm very grateful, sir, for the work that you've done on this, as I believe many in our community are. My comments, Madam Chair, and I'm very, very proud to second this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Just before we go to the vote, Ida, housekeeping. Under C, there's a litany of more alphabetical letters. Would it be Roman numerals? So you'll correct that at the right time. Thank you. It was just housekeeping. All those in favor for the motion put before you? Carried. Any opposed? Thank you. So it is carried. Thanks again, everyone, for coming out. So now we are on 8.1. This is the application for the Urban Hamilton Official Plan Amendment for lands located at 7175 Leland Street. Members of the committee, we're now, may I first have a motion to receive the written request from Chris Pidgeon, the agent for the applicant. Councillor Green, Councillor Conley, all those in favor. Just a second. I need a motion to lift item 8.1, the application for the Urban Hamilton Official Plan Amendment for lands located at 7175 and Leland Street from the table. So Councillor Green, Councillor Collins, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you. The public meeting for this item was closed on December the 1st, 2015. However, I can call on both Sarah Knoll of the GSP Group, agent for the applicant, to the podium for delegation, and I also believe that this committee has approved for Mrs. Mary Kiss to come down as well. So I can ask. Sarah, go ahead. Sorry. You can introduce yourself again and sign in for the record, please. Great. Although this is not a public meeting, everyone is restricted to 5 minutes, please.
Yes, understood. My name is Sarah Knoll. I'm a registered professional planner for GSP Group. Chris Pidgeon presented in front of you at the public meeting in December. He's away this week, but I've summarized where we stand, and the meeting, since it was tabled, it went to the neighborhood meeting in December, and we have an update from that. So in front of you, you had Chris Pidgeon's letter to committee to respectfully request the Planning Committee defer this to the March 1st committee meeting to allow the developer to work with Councillor Aidan Johnson's office and meet with the Ainsley Wood Community Association to try to address their concerns. This deferral does not impact the March 21st OMB pre-hearing, and this could result in a settlement hearing. So if the request for deferral is denied by Planning Committee, we alternatively request the staff to request that the staff recommendations be approved. And those are to support the staff recommendations on the Urban Hamilton Official Plan Amendment, that the draft Urban Official Plan Amendment be adopted by City and that the city solicitor be directed to explore settlement options for the appeals of the related zoning bylaw amendment and official plan amendment and report back to council for instructions on the appeals. The Ainslie Wood Westdale Community Association supports the application. They have submitted 3 letters of support from current presidents and the past president. The Ainslie Wood Community Association is opposed. To go over the as-of-right zoning, the DE district permits townhouses and a 5-story apartment building at a density of 49 units per hectare. So the developer could develop a 5-story, 24-unit apartment building with 5 bedrooms per unit. That translates to 120 residents. The current application before you is to allow a 5-story, 124-unit, which translates to 134 residents, an increase of 14 residents. This is split out to 109 bachelor units, which is less than 500 square feet, 5 one-bedroom units, and 10 two-bedroom units. This proposal is reflective of revisions to the unit layout to limit the number of bedrooms per unit.
1 more minute.
Separating the bedrooms translates into increasing the number of units. By the Ainslie Wood Westdale Community Association. We've had some parking discussions, and as Councillor Green's comments on the unit per parking analysis, that has been reflective of the reduction of parking based on the square footage of the unit, and that equates to 50 spaces per development, which we are providing. There's a McMaster University Transportation Tomorrow survey, which indicates 1 car to 2.9 students, which we are exceeding. And the trend is for 1 car for every 4.4 students, equal to 30 spaces that are required, and we're exceeding that as well. The tabling of the December committee meeting allowed for an additional neighborhood residential meeting in December. The concept was presented to the neighbors. The Ward Avenue residents, which abut the south side of the property on the other side of the rail trail, there was a concern with their impacts for quiet enjoyment of their rear yards. And the developer has since agreed to review fencing, landscaping, lighting, and the design with the residents as part of the site plan process. And a letter has been sent to them to confirm. So in conclusion, the proposed development may not be occupied by students or may transition to young professionals after graduation. The proposed application allows the developer to better manage the apartment building. As of right, 24 5-bedroom apartments will undoubtedly be occupied by students, and the density amendment is supported by parking reduction calculated using bedroom ratio or unit. Thank you.
And my apologies, Sarah, I jumped the gun on that one. So you were
I sped up there.
You were under 5 minutes. I'm so sorry. Any questions for the GPS group? Seeing none, may I have a motion, please, to receive the presentation? Councillor Green, Councillor Conley, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you. So now I'm going to call on Mary Kiss, please. Thank you. Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to, for the record, because Ms. Kiss spoke at the last public meeting about this, I think.
I did.
Yes, you did. And a delegation request did not officially come forward. I know. But I'll move that we allow Ms. Kiss delegation request today. For the
my
record
apologies. I thought it was on the roadmap.
No, it's not.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pearson. Councillor Pearson, Councillor Conley, all those in favor?
Just for public.
Thank you. So now it's official. You're officially now a speaker.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Thank you to the committee for allowing me to appear today. As you know, I was here on behalf of the Ainslie Wood Community Association.
Mary, can you just wait a second, please? We'd really like to see your lovely face. There we go. Thank you very much. Now we're good.
As you know, I was here a few months ago on behalf of the Ainslie Wood Community Association, which, of course, we are opposed increase in density. We understand fully that the applicant has the right to have a 5-story building in that location, but we oppose his application to increase the density through a request for an amendment to the official plan. We support high-density student housing along Main Street West, which is Business Street, as set out in the Ainslie Wood Westdale secondary plan. Is intended to provide a wide variety of housing forms for many types of households, including households of various sizes and age groups, and to encourage the maintenance of the appearance of low-density housing, especially single detached houses where possible. Encourage new infill housing and renovations to be compatible with surrounding residential developments, and to create opportunities for and higher densities and mixed-use commercial residential development to locate along major roads, Main Street West, for example. This project is not along the road. It is in the middle of a neighborhood and is incompatible with surrounding residential developments, mainly single-unit dwellings, mainly with zoning residential C, urban protected zoning, in the neighborhood. It does not serve our community well to permit sporadic ad hoc changes to our secondary plan. If having islands of high-density housing surrounded by low-density housing is something the city may wish to see, let it be proposed as an amendment to the secondary stand and open to public debate as such. We are concerned that after a change to high-density zoning, this or future owners will have the legal right to enlarge the project or replace it with a larger one, adding more tenants than proposed. We are concerned that approval of this application would set a local precedent encouraging requests for zoning changes for similar projects along non-major streets in the middle of the neighborhood. The approval of PHOPA 15017 would make it more difficult to argue against such further violations of the secondary plan. We are not persuaded that the project is likely to evolve and become anything other than a student rental facility. This project is unlikely to ever house seniors or families. This is indirectly confirmed by a staff report, which in the part dealing with adequate and direct pedestrian access and linkages to community facilities, quote unquote, names only McMaster University as such a communal facility. Most of the communal facility aspects of McMaster are only available to McMaster students and not to families or seniors in the community. There are no public schools or locations providing services to seniors within walking distance. Leyland Street is a two-lane neighborhood street near one Catholic elementary school. It is not configured for the levels of traffic associated with high-density zoning. Leland's sewers, drinking water, firefighting water, and other infrastructure systems are also not suited for high-density zoning. High-density housing directly adjacent the rail trail would likely reduce public enjoyment of the trail homes and lead to increased risk of illicit activity there after dark.
Mary, you need to wrap up, please.
Pardon?
You'll need to wrap up, please.
Oh, okay. There are parking problems both in the case of residents and those of people commuting from and to McMaster. That's a serious problem. Marketing only to students, the owner is admitting that the project is only intended for that segment of the population, which would reduce the diversity of Ainslie Wood. For many reasons, including a dramatic increase in student marketed housing and the closure of our local public elementary school, our community is under stress. We lack public services. So in conclusion, we would state that this application by the developer should be refused to increase density. We understand he can put up a 5-story building right now, but we are opposed to the official plan amendment allowing further density. It would not be in the best interests of the community at large. And we also might add that we're very happy to hear that someone is building something for students in the downtown area. We've been asking McMaster to build on their own campus and also to, or else go downtown to help in the renewal and revitalization of the downtown core.
Thank you, Mary. Are there any questions for Mrs. Kisray? Seeing none, I need a motion, please, to receive the presentation. Councillor Partridge, all those in favor. And thanks for your patience.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You've been here since this morning.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to go to Councillor Chad Collins for a motion on the staff report, please. Or is it Councillor Green? Sorry, Councillor Green.
Yes, and if members of the Planning Committee can please take note to the correspondence that I had set out the record by stating that Councillor Aidan Johnson is opposed to the Leland development, and I've agreed to bring this forward in his absence. Oppose the development as per the list required A through D. I could go through and read it. It was in our report, so is there any need for that? Would you like me to read all the different reasons why Councillor Johnson is opposing this?
I think that according to the Planning Act, we have to propose it for planning reasons. Does Councillor Green have to state those reasons, or are they already on record? Jason?
Through the chair, I think they're in the motion.
Thank you. So you've got the motion before you. Councillor Green?
The motion is before you, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Collins, that we oppose this project and reject the staff recommendations.
Okay, any discussion, any questions? Councillor Pearson, Councillor Partridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question to staff, because I think it was Sarah made the presentation. I want to ask, because and it's been stated that a 5-story building is allowed there now, and 24 units of 5 bedrooms per unit would be 125 units, which is less than I understand this proposal. So I'm just questioning, and I understand that also that the issue, just reading the report, was the official plan amendment is just to recognize increased density. So can you just clarify for me, how is it that it could have been, but we're doing this official plan? I just want to understand that.
Through you, Madam Chair, you're correct. The zoning on the property does allow for 5 stories as of right. The issue is density. Density is calculated on a units per hectare basis. So the developer did some calculations and found that in terms of number of units, they could have, I believe it was 20 units as of right, which would meet the density target, but they could split those units up into 5-bedroom units, which would increase the number of residents. What they're proposing is an increased number of units, but smaller units, so they're all 1-bedroom and just a few 2-bedroom units, but that increases the density overall.
Councillor?
And I appreciate that, not only for myself, but for the viewing public to understand, because it seemed a bit confusing that have this, and it's still. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Partridge.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to add in about retaining an outside planning consultant, but I notice it is in the graph of the motion, which I support. Thank you.
Thank you. We have the motion before us, ladies and gentlemen. All those in favor? Carried. Any opposed? Seeing none. Thank you. We're now on to 8.2, elevators in multi-story residential buildings, PED 16045 citywide. Thank you, but we have, please, just a second. Members of the committee, before we hear from Mr. Hawker, John Hawker's already requested a delegation. Are there any questions regarding the report? Yep, Councillor Green.
Councillor Jackson is also here. He might have some questions as well. Okay, so my questions are, I know Councillor Jackson had brought this up through the Seniors Advisory Committee. I had a string of elevator incidences in my ward that prompted me to move this as I did. But my question is, why weren't we able to go a little bit further in terms of recommendations? Because my challenge through you, Madam Chair, to staff is that, and I'm hoping they can comment on it, is that operable versus accessible are very different. What we were finding is that at the end of the month, a lot of these buildings where they'd have one down, for whatever reason, cash flow or otherwise, wouldn't fix it. At the end of the month, you'd have an operable elevator, but it wasn't accessible to residents because people are moving in and out every day. And the spirit of the motion was to ensure that residents weren't trapped in the basement for their laundry. We had issues, and I brought it up respectfully, around consonance issues that were happening, people being stuck in the lobby without access to restrooms. We had conversations around fire access, EMS, all of that stuff. So I'm wondering, we went with one, how come we couldn't get two?
I see that James Buffett is the author of this report. James, you heard the question, I'm assuming. Why one, not two?
Through the chair, was to ensure there was at least one operable within the building, and other legislation kicks in for larger buildings above 6 stories.
Okay.
Like fire legislation that would allow they were inoperable at all times.
Thank you, Councillor.
But again, going back to the spirit of my motion, it was on the high rises because respectfully, the difference between, Miss Smith, who's 79, walking 6 stories versus 16 or 20 is very different. And again, the speed operable was what accessible, which is why I think the original motion had asked for 2. So if we could just reflect on that original motion, why we deferred on that piece.
Thank you, James or Jason.
Chair, I'm just looking at the original motion. There was no mention about having 2.
Councillor?
Okay, I remember the conversation well because I can remember the story. But what's stopping us then from requiring to be operable on ones that are between 1 to 6 and 6 to 20? Like, what's stopping us?
What's stopping us for that?
Through the chair, off the top of my head, I can't say there would be any reason why I couldn't. We just want to make sure that these buildings that are 6 stories and less weren't left with no legislation that could be already legislation in place to cover buildings above that. But off the top of my head, I don't think we couldn't do that.
Madam Chair, the challenge that I'm having is that I feel like my spirit, my motion, and it was probably in my newness here on council, and the direct responses or the spirit of Councillor Jackson's might have been a bit different in that the requirement for under 6, I can get, we fill that gap, we now make it a requirement, but it doesn't solve any of the challenges that originally made me want to bring this forward. So I'm wondering if at the appropriate time, I'll leave this one alone, maybe come back with a motion then directing staff to look at the feasibility of the accessibility of two elevators. And I say that, Madam Chair, because there's sometimes the residents feel like there's a bit of a game being played where the property owners say there's a part on order, we can't get a part in, the order to comply comes, and these elevators go offline, people are stuck. We had it at, I'll name them, 150 Sanford, 20 Emerald, we had both of those as being problems. So I think maybe it was my own mistake. I need to be a little bit more direct in the motion. So I'll bring a motion as soon as this one passes.
Thank you. Jason would like to comment.
Yes, and through the chair, we can certainly go back and have some discussion around this, the second elevator. I can tell you some of the concerns we had. I mean, there are interior build issues to take into account. And the other concern was, if, especially on some of the low mid-rise buildings, if we're requiring a second elevator, does that actually make some of new projects not cost feasible, not market feasible, if we're going to require a double elevator shaft in some of the mid-rise? So we can certainly go back and think through some of those items some more, given that the councillor wants us to look at the second elevator option. Or you can just the back and forth we had at the staff level.
Thank you. Councillor Green, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the spirit is that if somebody moves into an apartment building with 2 elevators existing, the expectation is they're going to be operable. So at the end of the month when they're not, and Mrs. Smith is stuck in the laundry room or in the lobby, and for whatever reason, or worse, when, you know, when there's emergency services and stuff, and maybe in my report I'll have emergency services also speak to how many times this happens, where we have that accessibility, because they're literally taking people downstairs and stuff. So,
okay.
So I'll save it at that point. I'm not suggesting that we require it moving forward for new builds, but that on existing ones, both elevators be made just operable, but accessible, so that when orders to comply come, they happen in a timely manner. Because right now, when it's one, we give the OTC, and then they have how many days? The question is, how many days would they have to fix the elevator?
James? Sorry, Jason, I figured James.
I just say, so I think that clarification in terms of buildings where there already are existing 2 elevators or more than 2 elevators, so we can take that back and take a look at it from the standpoint of this bylaw. Like I said, the concern was when we were starting to look at new build, if we're going to start requiring new build to do double elevator shafts. So if we're looking at buildings that, you know, pre-exist and already have 2 elevators, we can certainly take a look at it.
Thank you. Councillor?
I think was there still a question that I had hanging out there? Yeah, James, if you could.
Okay, can you please repeat it for me? Your question?
James, you know what the question is?
I would like would you?
I forgot. It's been.
You forgot?
It's been a long morning.
So did I. James, do you remember the question? Would you mind?
So I guess the question is, do you have anything else to add, Mr. Buffett?
So through the chair, you had a question about what the timeline would be for an OTC to be issued.
Right.
Our property standards bylaw would be 19 days that we require. To get the elevator operating again. It's not to say they couldn't do it faster than that, but that's when we would require them to comply by.
Days.
So if members around this planning committee will remember the issues that I had specific to one location, 19 days without an elevator. You talk about not just seniors, but ADOA, accessibility, everything else. I don't feel that goes far enough. I don't feel that that's good enough, and I'd like to strengthen that, and I'll bring that motion accordingly.
Thank you. And I am recognizing Councillor Tom Jackson.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I wasn't going to ask questions, but since Councillor Green has asked further strengthening of this, and I've been a very patient man on behalf of the Seniors Advisory Committee for 20 months, this goes back, Madam Chair. So my question, piggybacking on Councillor Green's concern to strengthen this through you to General Manager Thorne, how much longer, Jason, would you and Marty need to accommodate, if possible, some of the strengthening that Councillor Green is requesting? Because
No, it's okay. I'll allow the question. Yep. Thank you.
have I done something wrong here?
No, Councillor Green was going to bring a motion after the report was received and approved. So this is fine. You can still ask your question. How fast could this be fast tracked?
Because, Madam Chair, we've got this here, we've got the foundation of what I like. If it's a matter of just adding on to this foundation, I would recommend the committee refer this back to staff, as long as it would be no longer than hopefully, let's say, another month. But if it was going to be another 6 months or longer, I'd rather today hopefully move on what's before us. So that's the essence of my question.
And I believe that Councillor Green is more than happy just to move the staff recommendation here today and then bring a motion forward to buff this up, correct?
Okay. I'd rather marry it all together if possible, but as long as
Okay,
it's
I'm
not
seeing
an
nods of heads.
undue delay for another year,
Sure.
if you will. So through you
Thank
to
you.
General Manager Thorne, please, Madam Chair.
How long will that take to strengthen the wording here?
So through the chair, we just would want to have some consultation with legal so we could commit to bringing it back. And if that is the case, then it may be simpler, because if the bylaw is passed today as is, we'd have to issue notice and advertise that the bylaw is passed, then we'd have to do it again in 6 weeks or so.
There you go.
We can bring it back to address this discussion today in 2 cycles in 4 weeks.
Looks good and hard at the same
I
time.
just knew there was some hidden purpose to my question of deferral
And that's
back,
why I
Madam
allowed
Chair.
it.
Thank you, Jason, and that's great. With a month's time frame, give or take, I'm more than happy if committee wants to refer it back to make it a comprehensive report, including some of the legitimate concerns raised. Thanks so much, Madam Chair.
Thank you very
Jason.
much. And I see Councillor Green's hand is up. I believe that's exactly what's on his mind now. Thank you.
Thank you for the sage wisdom of our experienced Councillor Jackson on the deferral. I'm happy to do that, acknowledging the encumbrance to move it, pass it, and then open it up again. So I appreciate his sage advice on myself. Seconded by.
Can I just hold off for a second because we have a speaker?
Oh,
so do you mind if we wait till Mr. Hawker's finished speaking?
Absolutely. No,
because
Mr.
there
Hawker.
could be something else involved in that motion.
Yes.
So at this time, I would like to call down John Hawker, who has requested an opportunity to speak before us today. Might have a bit more. Okay. Good afternoon, John. Thanks for waiting.
Good afternoon.
You can move right over to the microphone. That would be helpful. Oh, well.
Come on.
Yeah, you're going to have to move.
Madam Chair, Planning Committee members, other councillors, staff, and fellow residents. For those who don't know me, I've been a proud Hamiltonian for 13 years, living in an 18-story building conveniently close to this building. First, I'm not representing the former Tenant Advisory Committee or the Seniors Advisory, although I was the chair of TAC and joined the Seniors Housing Subcommittee to develop that housing options for older adults booklet that you've seen. Early in May of 2014, Mary Sinclair raised concerns at the Seniors Advisory and its Housing Subcommittee following a lengthy strike of elevator maintenance workers. She's currently at another meeting demanding her attention, so in her absence and with the support of others, I raise an alarm that this amendment does not go far enough. May of 14, Seniors Housing noted that James Buffett, author of the current report, would be recommending an amendment to the current bylaw. Any residential building of 6 stories or less would be covered by property standards bylaw. James was advised that this was adequate, as an order to comply allows 19 days with the possibility of an extension. Last Friday, I contacted Mr. Buffett to note our concern with the report and noted our concern, and I also noted in my request to speak. As a former campaign and writing guy for a MPP and minister, I know that speaking to the source of the concern gives them a time for an answer. I reminded him, and I remind you, that during June and July 2013 strike, many multi-elevator buildings often had no elevator operating at all, despite the fire code for buildings taller than 6 story. The fire code will not mandate immediately attention for buildings of 6 stories or less. The building code only covers the limited new construction. Clients, relatives, and others requiring Meals on Wheels, healthcare, housekeeping, pharmacy deliveries were left wanting. The expected often could and would not climb 4, 5, 6 stories. James' answer on Friday, train the personnel. Train the personnel of Meals on Wheels and such, train them better. Similarly, elderly or disabled, injured or chronically ill, who may depend on relatives or friends who don't wish to climb, must they also hope that they be trained? I delivered Meals on Wheels for St. Peter's for some time. I could not climb 6 then, or bluntly couldn't, and we couldn't do it on the timeline given. Visits missed, delayed, and uncertain create risk, anxiety, possibly a need for then, and would create a risk now for already vulnerable residents. Perhaps your relatives, friends, perhaps you. Selfishly, I say we're okay. We're on the 2nd floor. In 2014, this matter was referred to Fire and EMS for information on the increase of calls and a comment. There was no reply from Fire. Vital Services bylaw protects tenants, noting that the landlord is accountable to provide utilities, including electricity and other needs. Seniors Advisory Committee, February 2015, requested strengthening the bylaw by placing it under the Vital Services, and this was to be considered by staff. This report does not indicate serious consideration or any consideration of Vital Services or a rationale why such could not be done. And this amendment to bylaw 10-221 does not state the enforcement your constituents can expect. Enforcement better than 19 days. And Mary Sinclair, who approved these comments, and others are on side with a general tone as supported by this report, we request that this matter be covered by the Vital Service bylaw. Considered referring to staff for a rewrite, bringing back within 6 weeks. Obviously, my thunder was slightly stolen by the comments a little earlier. I want to note, and this seemingly there was no indication by the proponent of this report of study by other cities. I did a search and I found that in 2014, June of 2014, a Toronto councillor asked for a time limit for elevator repairs, making a motion on the request of establishing service standards to this effect as part of an ongoing review of city property standards. This was a motion. It was then deferred. It was put off and expected in 2015, and I found out yesterday that a note I received, the review was delayed while staff undertook additional work. As it stands now, the review and amendments, this is Toronto, are expected to be reported back to MLE, or they call it Municipal Licensing and Standards Committee, in the fall of 2016.
John,
so
I've
this
given
is a
you a
concern.
lot of leeway. Can
That's
you
it.
just wrap up, please?
That's it.
Thank you.
All I wish to say is I appreciate the deferral. One interesting comment. I went to the elevator safety Ontario people. I emailed them and asking for their comments. I got a note back saying that if they want, if I'm requesting information for them, I have to give them $5 deposit for an answer.
Oh, there you go.
Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you, John. I appreciate you coming down to the podium today. I'm going to go to Councillor Green for his motion. Councillor Green.
Thank you. And just, do we need to receive him or?
Yeah, I'll do that in a minute.
Okay.
Sorry.
But just a quick comment to John. John, I appreciate your work in the community. I know you're just settling in there, John, but I think we share concerns and we understand where you're coming from. So you don't have to come back down. I'm just saying thank you, John. Yep, great work. So, yeah, I just want to move to table this for such time within a month's limit. This process that we can follow up with staff and have those questions answered prior to having it come back and be passed to your council.
Okay, thank you. And just to clarify.
Study that vital services could be considered.
I believe it's already included with us, with vital services as well. You're like Meals on Wheels, et cetera. Thank you. I was just doing some research. Our next planning meeting is March the 1st. Then we have the March break. So the next planning meeting after that is March 22nd. So can we put that as the date, please? Good. I just want to make sure of that because you'll see in the outstanding business list, remove it. So I want to make sure that the new date's put on. So Councillor Green,
yes.
Moved by yourself, seconded by Councillor Conley, that this be referred back to staff for additional work as outlined in the directions per discussion. On March the 20th. All right, thank you. All those in favor? Thank you, everyone. So now if you go to, do we have any motions? Seeing none. Any notices of motions? Seeing none. General information, other business. We need to have a motion to amend the outstanding business list, but we have to amend it again. So the first is the new due date required, and this is to permit LED signs in the sign bylaw. The new due date was January 2017, has now been bumped up to April the 19th, 2016. May I have a motion, please, to move that up? Thank you, Councillor Pearson, Councillor Collins. All those in favor? Thank you. The second item is not to be removed. It is now, the new due date is March the 22nd. All those in favor, same motion? Same seconder. All those in favor? Thank you. Private and confidential. If no discussion is required, may I please have a motion to approve the closed minute sessions of February the 2nd, 2016 meeting and direct that they may remain confidential and restrict from public disclosure. Councillor Conley, Councillor Pearson, all those in favor? Thank you. So I need a motion for adjournment, please. Councillor Green and Councillor Collins, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you, everyone.